this man what the Rock is cooking.
Recording live from three locations. This is Pass the Rock. I'm Patrick, and as always, I'm joined by two great men, Caesar, a.k.a. LCs.
What the fuck? All right, never mind.
All right, we started the day. I wish I had the clip of Jerry Jones saying, "Let's go ahead and start the day by fucking up." We're not even going to start over. Caesar, what's up?
You know, I was just gonna say I'm one more bad loss away from flying to Philadelphia and kicking Nick Sirianni's ass myself.
And also we are joined by Jacob, aka Bethke.
I don't have to go as far for ass kickings, but I might need more motivation at this point. I'm numb. Somehow, just as quickly as I felt pain, the pain of another can turn your weekend just right back into the direction of it.
I have no idea what y'all are talking about. It was a great weekend. There's a lot of football, so we're going to kind of skip over some of the other stuff we might cover on a weekly basis if we're lucky, because I'm probably going to be up late tonight. Maybe I'll record something to talk about all the goings-on in the baseball.
We can bury the Rangers next week.
And the hockey.
And introduce
That's
hockey.
about to be kicking in. But honestly, yeah, we just kind of want to get to the main stuff. But before we get to all of that kind of junk nonsense fun, we're gonna pass this rock immediately on to Bethke.
Oh, we have a little hoopla, just a little sample platter hoopla. As we that actually threw me off a little bit, but all right, we're back. It's like Patrick's here, but then he's not in my brain. We're going to talk about the WNBA because season ends tomorrow. Things are pretty much already figured out. So if this is your first time to tune in for the season, this is basically going to be a little what you need to know before the playoffs start. Obviously, you've probably heard about Caitlin Clark. You may have heard about Asia Wilson. You should have heard about Asia Wilson. You should know that the league's doing very well, that the ratings are sky high, the money's pouring in, everybody's happy, thoughts of expansion, which we'll get to. Such a beautiful world in the W. But first, we're going to talk about the awards for this season. ESPN recently put out an article where they sort of predicted that all three of the biggest awards, MVP, Rookie of the Year, and Coach of the Year, should be unanimous. I also think Defensive Player of the Year could be unanimous. We'll see how that ends up going. Asia Wilson set the record for points in a season. I think she was the first WNBA player to eclipse 4,000 now. And then Caitlin Clark, on the other side of this, is basically broken all kinds of records, rookie records, single game records, single assist records for any player, rookie or not. Well on her way to a Rookie of the Year title. And then her coach, Cheryl Reeve, most likely will get the nod because the Indiana Fever have done so well since they're not really that bad of a start, but fairly slow start to the season. They've basically gone from bottom-dwelling team to future of the league. I mean, with Caitlin, certainly. Coach of the Year might be a little confounded. Becky Hammond has done a good job keeping the Aces afloat as they try to four-peat, I think, if I remember correctly. It's to the level of how many have you won in a row now. That's a good thing. And then Sandy Brondello, who's got the Liberty. They have the best record in the league. They lost the title last year. They're heavily favored to win the title this year. So I could see where some vote stealing might come into play in the awards. And if you're a gambler, you've already missed your opportunity here. And frankly, I don't know how many other places there even are to bet this stuff. Every time I try to find the odds on this, it feels like only certain books actually put award races. You can only do game by game betting. So fuck that. That needs to change. Nafisa
I'd bet they have futures next year.
I would hope so.
Now that they see what it kind of looks like.
At least DraftKings, you sons of bitches. At least you. If no one else, you. And sponsor the pod. Nafisa Collier, probably going to be Defensive Player of the Year, but there's a lot of great defensive players in the W, so I wouldn't be shocked if she's not unanimous, even if she should be. Moving into the playoff race, our Dallas Wings are eliminated. The Los Angeles Sparks are eliminated. those are the only two teams eliminated. What the future of the Dallas Wings holds, basically, in my opinion, comes down to whether they get Paige buckets in the draft. We'll talk about expansion, how there's going to be a team that comes into play. But ultimately, the Wings are going to have the second worst record. They've got a lot of talent. They're a frustrating organization in other ways. I think they've got a good coach, so I think you could easily rebound. But if they don't get Paige buckets, then I do wonder if they're just kind of treading into the same spinning wheel, where even if they're healthy next year, then they're only so good long term. And it's tough when there's so few teams.
So if they do get Paige Bucher, right? Is her name?
Yeah.
And so if they do get her, does she pair well with?
No, I think she's just Becker. I think it's Becker's, and I always want to say Bucher because of fucking Rick Bucher. But I'm pretty sure it's Becker's, but it's spelled with a U instead of just a E.
All right. Well, does she pair well with our current ball?
She is star? At this point. That doesn't matter. I mean, honestly, yeah, that is a question, but no, you would definitely just go ahead and put those girls together, and if it doesn't work, then like Arike probably is out the door. If we're being honest, she's been here longer. They've had Paige should be very good, like very, very good.
Yeah. No, I mean, I personally don't mind if it's two clashing styles because we've seen it work before. Granted, in the men's game, but we've seen ball dominant players make it happen.
If you see the Vegas Aces, they're like I said, they're a dynasty, and they've got three girls that you wouldn't necessarily think would play together. And if the league was deeper, then they wouldn't have a three-guard future Hall of Fame rotation like they do with Plum, Young, and Gray. And then that's on top of having the best player in like maybe all time in Asia Wilson. So like what the Aces have been able to do has been the version of the W we're familiar with. So you do have to kind of roster stack, and then you have to hope these girls will put it all together and then kind of play like the dream team has to play, and kind of have to, everyone has to, humble themselves to the ball. And that's the hard part with the W right now.
Breaking news: Google would like us to pronounce it Paige Buchers.
So Buchers is the correct pronunciation.
According to Google, BYOO-KRZ. Buchers.
I'm going to try to figure out that, because every time I hear people in the community talk about it, I'm hearing Beckers. And I'm hearing Beckers on TV, and I'm hearing Beck, and I'm like, that says Bucher. I think that is
a lot of times. Maybe not a lot of times, but I have seen it where it seems like some families just pronounce something different for whatever reason. A long time ago, their family just said it different. So
yeah, maybe so.
Best guess.
I've been trying to understand this myself, but yeah, there you go. There's some more clarification. Meanwhile, if you look at the bracket, 1 through 7 is locked in. The Liberty, the Lynx, they're I think pretty much locked in at 1 and 2. I don't know if you can actually find something that shows they're locked in. I know there's a battle for the 3 seed with Connecticut and the Aces. Like I said, there's only one game left for every team, and it's tomorrow. Nobody's playing tonight. So all of this will kind of happen. Boom, boom, boom. The Storm are locked into 5th, I believe. And then there's a race for 6th, whether it be the Fever, who currently hold it, or the Phoenix Mercury, who are lurking in there. Obviously, everybody just has to fit the wins and losses. So really the battle's for the 8th seed here. 3 teams are going to play for the 8th seed. Only one of them is going to emerge. I think right now it's the Atlanta Dream, who have been slightly better. They should have already had this position locked in probably a couple weeks ago. But they've had if the Wings are the most disappointing team in the W, the Dream are dead close, because the other teams have excuses for being bad. This situation for the Wings and the Dream to have fallen off from promising prior seasons is notable. But they are in the driver's seat. The Washington Mystics have had a phenomenal turnaround. They started the season 0-12, and they were in the 8th seed yesterday. I had to update this because of last night's games. And then so they have to play the Indiana Fever, like I said, battling to keep the 6th seed. So that's a tough one for them. Chicago Sky are also in the mix here, even though they've started to fall back down because they've obviously lost one of their young stars for the season. So we're going to go ahead and move on there a little bit. Camila Cardoso is still really talented, so they're not hurting. It's just obviously it's a deep league. So you lose one really good player like Angel Reese, and then you're kind of shit out of luck. Their last game is against the Connecticut Sun. Like I said, they're battling to keep the 3 seed. The Dream, they're going to play the Liberty, who are the 1 seed. They're most likely to win because the Libs don't have anything to play for, in my opinion. Who knows how that'll actually go down. So, yeah, should be the best postseason we've ever seen in WNBA history. There will be a lot of fun matchups that we'll get to talk about. I believe by the next time we record, either a couple of the first round series are already going to be over, or there might be 1 or 2 still lingering, as I think it's 3-game series to start the first round. So we will see an update then with how those went. But the final thing I wanted to talk about with you guys and open it up a little bit just to see and hear your thoughts on this, because the WNBA has decided to expand pretty rapidly. They want to get back to 16 teams pretty quickly. That means 4 teams need to come in, right? Golden State's already been announced; they'll be in next year, right? We already that's already been
They have to be tied to NBA teams.
No,
okay,
no, not necessarily. The 3 that have been announced so far have. So perhaps that's the question that you should consider that for what I'm going to ask you. Golden State is going to be the Valkyries we already know their name. We already know their logos. Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if they even get fixed to where they get Paige to start their whole, start their franchise. I honestly would almost guarantee that.
You think they would give the first overall pick to an expansion team?
That's where I think that's the only thing is I'm like, wouldn't it be easier to do this if you're, and I think like they can break the precedent set.
Yeah, I guess you just feel bad for whoever would have maybe got. I don't know if they do lottery or if they just do straight standings, but
I mean, yeah, you're talking about Los Angeles Sparks, which I think is definitely. I mean, putting her on the Sparks would definitely put that franchise in a position to be very good for a very long time.
And I'm just, how mad are they going to be if they miss out? Because
basically, what I'm saying is, don't expect the Dallas Wings to get that pick. There's no reason why the WNBA is going to want to continue to prioritize Dallas. They just want them to have 1 to 2 stars, and that's all they care about. And I get it. It might be all the ownership cares about too. Portland and Toronto will come in next year. I don't believe either of those teams have been named yet, or have any. We just found out about Portland, so I know that one. But Toronto, I don't think has released any other information.
What's Portland's?
Portland just got announced like yesterday or this morning.
So no team name or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't know anything other than Portland will get one and Toronto will get one. Portland has had a team before, Toronto has not. Obviously, that'll be a big deal. But the biggest deal here, if you guys are good at math, I know this is a little bit advanced, but that's 3 teams. To get from 12 to 16, you need 4 teams. That means, guys, you need 1 more team.
Mexico City.
Well, that's certainly the talk in the NBA expansion that recently got brought up this past week with Brian Windhorst and them. But we're not going to cover that. That doesn't matter as much to me. It's
Montreal.
Interesting, but we don't know. Montreal, no. Toronto, they've already done it, so now Canada's good for a while, right? They're not going to double dip in Canada.
Puerto Rico.
No, you're
okay,
thinking. Remember how there's only 15
Cheyenne.
teams, right? No, you're thinking if for a big league, there's so many cities missing. So the Detroit Shock, who are now the Dallas Wings, the Houston Comets, the original franchise that built the WNBA, has not existed for a very long time. The Carolinas love college basketball. Makes sense to throw one there.
Yep.
Nashville exists, and I always have to mention them in this situation.
They don't have an NBA team.
They don't have an NBA team, so it's one of those. I don't think it matters that much. I mean, I think there's certain markets.
I also think
Tulsa.
They could tie in with Memphis and it'd be fun.
Yeah. So Tulsa Shock is now the Dallas Wings. It was the Detroit Shock, the Tulsa Shock. Now, no, they'll never put a team in Tulsa. That I think they learned their lesson there because, I mean, even the Dallas Wings need to pick up more. You know what I mean? Like it's basically what happened.
Dallas.
It's basically what happened with the Thunder, right? Or pre-Thunder era NBA is where Mark Cuban basically had that audience, and then he got that stolen from him. So that's just not about to happen in a much smaller league. They're like, no, we demand Oklahoma. So either way, expansion's coming. My pick, I think I've already tipped it, and maybe this is a surprise, but I would like to see the Houston Comets back. I think that when you come to building a really nice historical, legacy of a league, you really aren't. Like what had happened if the Celtics moved on and you know what I mean, and we still had to relive the '60s Celtics, but now they're in some other place and stuff like that. So it's just, you don't really love that. You want them to be back. There's a lot of history with that Comets group. They really did put together a great group just to start this whole league and an interest and get this ball rolling. So I would like to see Houston back. That's the long of it for me. But Detroit, Philadelphia has not had one before, I believe, and they just basically got renewed for their new arena. The Sixers did, so the Sixers won't be in New Jersey, if you had heard that rumor, or won't likely be in New Jersey. I just watched that Oakland Athletics thing Pablo Torre did a while back, and now I'm like, never say never, but it most likely won't happen now.
Never a good time when your owner's buying land somewhere else and telling you it's for something else.
Never a good time, but I think in this point, Philadelphia residents are safe. The Sixers should be staying in downtown.
It seems like a wild franchise to move, but I guess it could happen.
I think it's because you can move it to another place so simply and keep the same fan base theoretically, but I think they know the spirit of Philadelphia won't allow
the
it.
League is too smart to let that happen. Maybe not the owners themselves, but don't deprive a good fan base of good product like Oakland. Let us all learn from Oakland. Like those people did nothing but care about sports and represent those. St. Louis and Seattle's whatever. But I really feel for Oakland. They've had two teams leave, and they were both, should have stayed there. No reason why they should have left. Well, 3 now, right? Or did the Warriors just move into Oakland?
Yeah, I mean, technically you could count the Warriors. They did move to San Francisco, which is not a convenient thing for people
feels
in
like
Oakland.
more of a slight than moving across.
At least they're still your team, man. At least you can still rock the jersey, man. I would be so pissed off if I was an Athletics and Raiders fan. I just wouldn't.
Raiders is weird also. They bounced around a bit, but
they bounced around. That's fair. They did not have a lot of success in Oakland. That is a very valid point. But either way, good fans, that's what kind of breaks your heart about it. But it's modern sports. Get used to it. Especially because we're about to start talking about college football, baby.
Wow.
Because we had a great one. We had an impressive series of games that came down to the wire in many cases. Not the two that we're going to start with, unfortunately. Patrick, you were at a bar in Denton, East Side. Is it a tavern?
East Side Draft House?
It's Draft House. You're right.
I don't know what the full.
I think they call it a tavern.
Yeah, it's Draft House.
Everyone just calls it East Side, but I'm sure it has a.
I want to know its government name.
All right, one second.
I know the government name. Been there a couple times,
East Side Social, wasn't it? East Side Social at one point.
It's just listed as East Side. It's currently just listed as East Side Denton.
Oh,
they might have cleaned that up finally.
There was a place called Social, I think, in that area, but I don't remember if that was it.
But I don't know. Maybe they're just doing business as. That's a whole other conversation. Yeah, so they normally open up at noon on Saturdays, but because there is a big North Texas versus Texas Tech football game at 11 a.m., they went ahead and opened at 10. So went and checked out what that scene was like on the outdoor Jumbotron. Mostly North Texas fans, decent percent of Tech fans in there, but not a lot. Wasn't full. It's a big area, you guys know. It's a pretty large area. It takes it fills Friday and Saturday.
It's a place where you can be there when it's packed and still have a conversation, and that's a remarkable thing in this modern world.
Yes, except for when I was at their 11th anniversary party and the Texas Flood cover band was playing. A little tough to talk over that. And when they showed the Stars, they're still getting used to doing stuff outside. When they showed the last Stars playoff game, they had the volume so loud. It was awesome, but anyways. And I was excited. Thought it'd be a fun time. Tech's not been looking good. North Texas has been playing well. I was told their quarterback was going to get in the Heisman talk soon.
Who told you that?
Pretty quickly. we
Please say their
found out
names.
the difference between those two franchises, their organizations or schools, whatever you want to call them, programs. That's what we're looking for.
Programs is the historical term, but now you might as well call them franchises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got out of hand pretty quick because everyone knows Texas
So
Tech ran away with it. Really not just a whole lot to talk about. Tech's
Final
quarterback
score
has a cool
66
name.
to 21.
66-21. What was Tech's quarterback's name? It was something cool. It was like Baron Moltor or something like Morton. Baron Morton.
Yeah, Baron Morton, I think. Yeah, something Morton.
It's Behran or something like that. Cool name.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it
all
was.
I took away from the game. I left around halftime and moved on with my life.
It was a bump in the road for the Mean Green's journey to the college football playoff, but luckily expansion gives us a chance to still win the conference, and I think that'll be enough. We'll go undefeated, we'll win the conference.
You think your conference qualifies you for a playoff spot?
I think the Mean Green will have an impressive resume by the end of this, and they're going to make the college football playoffs. So.
I don't think the voters will let that one go.
How many teams? 36?
Oh, yeah. We're going to go full NCAA.
Yeah, no, it was a tough one. Chandler Morris. There was a. We're going to talk about the NFL quarterbacks more, but like if we were more focused on college football, then he would certainly have had more than a fair share of moments in that game.
You know, that game made me miss last year's quarterback, Chandler Rogers.
They were also without their starting running back, which I think also might have been more of an obvious problem for that offense because it was like, oh, now that I can't just do this, then all the stuff that Chandler Morris does really well doesn't work.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, it's.
So it could have been
like
45 to 32.
Yeah.
It could have been a better ass whooping.
It would have covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least covered the spread, but like that was just so rough. You know what bothered me though? What bothered me, and I said this to y'all in the chat. I was watching the game throughout the entire all of Saturday, and this is where I tuned out. It's a 4th and 7, right? And you're like, okay, at least look competitive. Like you're at least trying not to get completely dogged on. Chandler Morris runs up the middle for a scramble, and then the dude just made a business decision. I'm like, you're not even going to the pros, dog. He makes a business decision and slides on 4th and 7 with like a solid 4 yards still to go. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's throwing the white flag if I've ever seen it. Just put the backups in already.
I might be more likely to make a business decision if I know I'm not going to go get paid.
Yeah, I think I can understand why he might have just
not worth the long-term brain damage when you're down 30 to Tech to go for that one.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think it was an unfortunate series of events. North Texas needs to play defense. They need to understand that tackling is important. Unfortunately, our head coach was a wide receiver at Texas Tech, so I'm going to guess that we're only going to have one style of offense.
He's like, this isn't 7-on-7.
What are the odds? Okay,
we're pretty much just going to be scoring points and hoping that's the way we do it until this guy takes a bigger job. Some sucker takes him and hires him.
I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on real quick. What if this was an inside job? All right, listen. Eric Morris, he's a former Texas Tech Raider.
He was protecting Raider Rash.
What if, I'm just saying, he goes in there, doesn't really fully commit to a great game plan, knows that, hey, this is probably the type of deal that will probably lose us the game if we had a fully healthy roster, but this will definitely lose us the game with the current setup that they have going on. And then he's like, listen, he's maybe one of those guys that just looks too fondly on his alma mater.
No, I think UNT just couldn't tackle worth a goddamn.
That's true.
I think the funniest play. The funniest play was when the dude was burnt, and then he still went up and tried to go make it look like he was going to get the pick, but it really was just the most meaningless swipe at the ball because that was just a walk-in touchdown after that.
Now, I did listen to this on the broadcast that I found interesting and could explain why there was a big struggle against a more competent opponent, we'll say. I think they said over 77 players are new to the UNT program. Which
you guys are
that's
the
a lot.
Transfer portal.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a lot. So
gotta get them while we can.
You guys are like the the connecting flight for a lot of people. All right.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with that. It's not the worst way to. This honestly kind of helps our
It does
ecosystem
make it
a little
tough to put a team together.
Dude, you're competing in the AAC.
But
We'll be all right. We got Wyoming this week. Wyoming's one of the few teams that's got this many wins.
yeah,
You get
but they
bounce
still
back
have the
games.
best uniforms in all sports.
All right. Well, Josh Allen's not walking through that door.
And even if he was not that good at Wyoming.
All right. Well, that was, I think, enough of Mean Green.
That's
ass
probably
whooping.
more Mean Green talk than anything outside of a Mean Green podcast gets. So
Is there such a thing?
yes,
We could make it. Oh, there
You
is.
mean journalism school? You don't think journalism school has a sports podcast?
Well, I am a graduate of the Mayborn Journalism School at
and
UNT.
I guess the problem is,
we did not. But
My guess-
I would
my-
hope
my
that
question
you're right.
is,
I would hope they do now.
do you define like them putting the coaches show out as a podcast, a podcast?
Close
Yeah.
enough.
I'll let that. Yeah, I will. I will actually
They
let that.
1,000% have a coaches show.
Yeah, they do.
And I have no idea, but I bet someone uploads it
Damn, I
somewhere.
can't
I'm pretty
imagine
sure they
Dave
still
McCarney
do it at
doing
Rudy's
that.
Barbecue up 35 as well.
Ugh.
All right.
Yeah, but to a more competent program, or just
The other program in
a
Texas.
more advantageous program at least.
The other school.
Yeah, so down in Austin, we got a fun one. Texas is now number 1 in the country after they dismantled who was that?
UTSA.
They should call Texas.
Let me just say,
that
was the-
struggled a little bit in Kentucky.
That was the Texas boost. That was the Texas boost more than Georgia struggling, in my opinion.
It was. I mean, it's both. If Georgia
That's
had walked
fine,
in
but
there
it's
and
the-
knocked Kentucky's in the mouth, then they'd be
as
number
a-
1.
As a fan of Texas for
But also,
so long,
like those rankings don't mean anything. So
exactly. No, and that's why there's a Texas boost. As a fan of Texas, I have seen so many times where they have reached so hard to put Texas in the top 25.
if there was
in
a
the
Texas
down
boost,
years.
we would have been number 1 at some point in 09. So
Well, okay, that was a tough year for it though. That's you
because
had 3 or 4 teams competing for number 1.
Bama as we know them, but they held it the whole
No,
year anyway.
you're right. But there was a lot of BCS shenanigans going on back then. That was a different world with slightly more corruption than we're at now.
But anyways, we saw a boat race. Unfortunately, we saw I don't even know if we actually saw Quinn Ewers get hurt at any point.
Quinn Ewers had a phantom. He
He was
had an
just kinda-
injury. He hurt his hand, but actually in psych it was by abs.
Yeah. Well, my guess is.
If you watch, I mean, that's dead ass.
Well,
how
so
it-
yeah, my guess
that's-
is he did both. Obviously, his
Yeah,
hand
I'm
he hit his
guessing
hand.
so.
And that's what he was feeling first, and then he went out there and threw another one that involved his actual obliques and stuff, and felt
called
that.
it
But
there.
luckily, you don't like to say you're fine with your backup quarterback starting ever, really, but
Unless
I
you have the
think
most
this week-
highly touted guy.
you have, and that excluded. We'll get to that one second. Who do we have this week? It's like Mississippi State or something.
We'll get to it. I've got that in the preview.
Okay,
But
so yeah,
it's not a big game.
It's and as much as you just got to execute your normal game plan, don't f it up. It's should be fine with the guy that we'll talk about now, Arch Manning, who might be the second best quarterback in the country. I don't know.
Well, he's probably the best. He's probably one of the few great, potentially even like NFL level type talents if he develops along the way. It's just been nice to see him play. Sark has a very baby offense. No offense.
No, I mean it's
he
simple,
babied
it's quick, and
the
it
fuck out of
works.
quarterbacks. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's college.
It just-
do it.
It just makes you wonder how much these guys can develop. I think the thing what I see with Arch that I have struggled to see with Quinn throughout way more snaps is I feel like Quinn is slowly but surely reprogramming his brain. I think that in basketball we talk about it as it's kind of that Hooper, that Hooper versus baller thing. And there's just something about Arch Manning that makes me feel like he's more competent with his body, his brain.
I
and
mean,
what
it's been
he's
his
doing.
literally his whole life with actual, professional
But like,
established training.
how many times
so-
do we see people not take advantage of that? You know
No,
what I mean?
no, for
Yeah,
sure. But I mean, I'm just saying,
I
like,
feel like this is a different
it
for
makes
him.
sense when you just look at it, you're like, okay, yeah, that's.
I think it made sense the day that he was like, I'm going to be a backup because I know I'll still probably play, and then I'll have a number 1 ranked team when I'm the starter.
And I'll
my
have
first year.
A couple million in the bank before.
Well, and of course that I'll be paid. I mean, you're Arch, you're gonna get paid no matter what, brother. But
yeah, but I mean the way that it opened up for him, when he got there was pretty sweet.
I think it was a transfer. Who was he committed to before the NIL thing? Wasn't Arch committed to?
Yeah,
Arch decommitted, and then he signed the bag when the NIL dropped, right?
I don't think he ever decommitted from Texas.
It doesn't matter, but it was a funny moment. Obviously, we'll show this now by Patrick 16 seconds. The most important play of the game.
But they hadn't done much on the ground in this game.
Oh, look at Arch Manning. Oh, hit him with the 2-step. Arch Manning, touchdown.
I mean, that in itself is just incredible because
I stood up for that one, man. I stood up for that one. And this is, it's
maybe a little on the overhyped scale now because, anytime you're as hyped as an Arch Manning and you do anything that remotely lives up to it, it's overblown. That's just how sports works.
Yeah, but
and the same for if he makes a couple mistakes, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and there have been mistakes, but those have been hidden because they have not
also,
been
not as costly. Yeah.
They've not been as important.
Now let's get some context to this performance, and I'll try to lead things off on this one. For anybody who's overhyped and some people who are like underhyped, we'll try to find a nice, beautiful middle on this one with this because I watched that game, and listen, he comes in there obviously not expecting to play, maybe not until at least like the fourth quarter or something. Get that garbage time minutes in there. Injury to Quinn happens. He comes in there immediately. First 2 plays, touchdowns. Now that first passing touchdown, I think it was a 19-yard strike. That one looked pretty decent. Now we can look at that 67-yard run, and here's where I get a little bit excited, but I do temper my expectations, of course, because he hasn't had a lot of snaps in college yet. One, you look at him and he brings a different dynamic to the offense than Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is going to be more of your standard drop back passer. He has some athleticism, right? Like he's not a statue by any means, but he's not going to break off any 67-yard runs. And then made this comment off camera early when we were looking at that clip. It didn't look like Arch was even going full speed. Like, honestly, I feel like he could have gone a little bit faster if he wanted to.
Yeah, it's UTSA. I mean, no offense to those guys; they're Division I players, but
yeah, and they've developed some NFL athletes in before, so it's not uncommon for them to have at least 1 or 2 NFL caliber athletes on that team. What I'm going to bring up to a lot of people here is like, if you look at the plays, everything was very simplified, even more so. You brought it up, and that's not a bad thing. When your backup's in there, they're not getting a bunch of snaps in practice, right? You don't want your backup to have a bunch of snaps. But what he was asked to do, he did great. And then he has elite 5-star level athletes who are developing at their positions. Look at Isaiah Bond, for example.
It's an incredibly loaded offense. Other than running back, that is still a bit of a concern. But even that's been a decent committee so far.
They lost 2 day 1, day 2 wide receivers, and they haven't missed a beat, right? That's how loaded this team is. And a lot of those touchdowns that he made or that he got, those players were making plays or there was a busted coverage. But that's not to say, hey, for anybody who's like, hey, Arch Manning's great. It's like he potentially can be very great. He has the physical tools. He showed that. It shows that he can thread the needle. He showed that he can take off for a long run. And he showed that he can take advantage of busted defenses. Not a lot of quarterbacks, not a lot of backup quarterbacks, rather, can always do that. They'll sometimes float the pass and just miss on it. Let it sail and underthrow it. So for anybody who is worried about Quinn Ewers, don't be. You have a really great prospect as your backup quarterback who looks like he can develop into a bona fide star with the more reps that he gets. But also, now that we know about Quinn Ewers' injury is not going to be long term, you can take a small breath and know that Arch Manning can handle this offense for at least another week or 2. And it wouldn't surprise me if he has that, he comes from, we all know his bloodline is. it wouldn't surprise me if he steps up in the big moments. If he has to play against, say, a Mississippi State, an Oklahoma, I would kind of be a little bit on, like, not at ease.
Are you
if he had to
saying that
start
Arch
against Georgia.
Manning is the only cure for Patrick Mahomes?
Sure, we could say that, absolutely, or at least a cure for the Daniel. No, not Daniel. The Patrick Mahomes clone over in Nebraska.
Raiola.
But yeah, I think as far as what we have right now, what we know about what we have with Arch Manning, a lot to be positive about. But let's pump the brakes just a little bit, because hey, we don't know what the timeline is of how long Tua is going to be, but we do know one thing: he has a lot more experience, and that could serve him well going forward. But at the same time, not to play both sides of the fence here, we have seen talented college football teams be led by very young quarterbacks to the promised land. Maybe not win the game, but getting there, right? So it could happen. If Quinn Ewers has to miss an extended amount of time, don't think he will. But
No,
I think
it doesn't look likely. It looks like they'll. I think it's 2 games. I think it's 2 kind of meh games, and then you get Oklahoma. I'm pretty sure it's.
And there's a bye week right before Oklahoma as well.
Okay, so 3 weeks before you're playing. Yeah. So it's Monroe this week. We'll get to that. But then I think it's Mississippi State after that.
Yeah, that's the first SEC. Yeah. And then bye week. Then Oklahoma, then Georgia. And that's kind of where you'd like to have Quinn.
There is a cushion as well for these things. But we'll get into that as the college football season goes. Is there anything else about the University of Texas that you boys want to talk about? We'll get back to the previews next week.
We're ranked number 1 for the first time since 2008, and that's pretty cool.
It's a great feeling. How long will it last? That's the fun part in college football. I think Texas has a good chance to make it last 3 weeks.
At least 3 weeks, probably.
They should. I mean, we'll talk about those
Stuff
2 opponents, but we'll see.
We even saw a 3rd-string quarterback the other night on Saturday. Not the other night, the other day.
The goal is that you'll see him at least 2 more times.
And yeah, I saw him against, not him, but I saw the 3rd-stringer when I was watching the 2009 Texas ULM game. Colt got out pretty quick.
They
brought in Garrett Gilbert. Garrett Gilbert. And then they brought in, I'm trying to remember who Garrett Gilbert. Childs was Garrett Gilbert's backup.
Yeah. John Childs, right?
Yeah. Yep. Well, I don't know his first name.
They moved him to wide receiver at one point. I remember.
Yeah, he did get moved to receiver.
That would make sense.
And he was actually pretty good. He was pretty useful for a bad receiving room.
Yeah, a problem when they just don't have a spot for you. So, yeah.
Well, they had a lot of spots for everybody after that 2010 team.
But anyways, that's pretty much it on that. And I'm going to hand the rest of the college football reins over to Bethke here.
All right. I'm not Boomer. I can't do my fastest 2 minutes, but I will try to get us through some of the games we don't care about and let you guys maybe talk about things you do. Arizona, Kansas State was a big game. Unfortunately, the final score wouldn't tell you that. It was close till 3rd quarter, then the final 31-7. Kansas State's rolling. Looks like they could be the favorites in the Big 12 after all. What a shock. Alabama, Wisconsin. That one could have been a good game. Wisconsin loses their quarterback almost instantly. Not that may have mattered too much because Bama put that curb stomping on them 42-10. This is the most points allowed in Camp Randall, the home of the Wisconsin Badgers, since 2008. Probably the best game that happened over the weekend was Mizzou versus Boston College. Billy O'Brien has a hot quarterback. He has a decent program. Looks like maybe they could even break up the ACC party this year since Florida State is. And Mizzou is somehow quickly over the last 2 or 3 seasons built themselves back into being a top 10 program, and they're looking to solidify that. I think beating a frisky kind of startup program like BC is, I think that's a pretty good win, honestly, because it looked like they were dead to rights in that game early, and they survived the bullshit and came back and won. And that's kind of how you have to handle your business as a top 10 team. Oklahoma should have blown out Tulane, but their quarterback got a little turnover friendly and helped Tulane creep back into that one, even though by the end of it, 34-19 is the final. OU, we still have a lot of questions about OU, but this was a good test because, like I said, they should have blown out Tulane. They did not because of turnovers. Do you clean the turnovers up, then this is a team that's got a good defense, and it's got a quarterback that may not be a great thrower, but then can allow them to be a pretty dominant running team and compete that way. The final game that we talked about and previewed, the Aggies and the Gators. Billy Napier survives his first attempt on his life. Different guy from Florida's on number 2. This guy is on just one attempt on his life at this point. Billy Napier, though, probably will have to look over his shoulder for the rest of the season, as it did not go well. The Aggies dominated without their starting quarterback, and now there's starting to be a little bit of the quarterback controversy for the Aggies. Could even give them a little bit of life, since, like I said before, I think they're a pretty solid group. Just was a little worried about that quarterback play, and perhaps an injury might have helped them a little bit. Other notable college football games. Kansas dropped another one to UNLV, not in they played each other, but Kansas has now lost 2 in a row and went from being the year that they're supposed to be back and winning the Big 12 to quickly out of the top 25 and what the fuck's happening. But that
nice stadium, though.
Yeah, nice stadium, and it looks like UNLV, this will boost them into the top 25. I think that I actually didn't go back and check what they got boosted or not. Georgia survived a slugfest against Kentucky, 13-12. Absolutely awful game, but I think you got to respect Kentucky for handling their business. They're about to go on a murderer's row of SEC games, so I think that even though there's no moral victories and all that jazz, that was a pretty good start for them to kind of handle this tougher campaign, because if you can survive that one with Georgia, maybe you can actually pull off an upset or two coming up. Yeah. South Carolina looked like they were about to upset LSU for the longest time until LSU kept roaring back into that one. 36-33 was the final, a near miss with the game-tying field goal for Scar. So that was unfortunate for that fan base, because it is kind of South Carolina is kind of a fun football program. Obviously, they've dominated women's basketball, so they've been very lucky there. At least.
Go Cox.
Yeah, exactly. The Cox were raring and roaring, but unfortunately, there was nothing they could do about it.
Who are you asking about getting a boost?
UNLV.
Yes,
yeah,
UNLV.
Not in the AP top 25.
They went from 7 votes to 54.
Okay, so they're getting closer.
Just to let you know,
I'll need that for other
it takes
ones.
82 to crack where A&M is at 25.
The AFCA coaches poll, they are ranked 25th in that one, but unranked in the AP top 25.
Well, there you go. UNLV football looks like it could have a good season.
Running. Still the running Rebels winning football. I didn't know if that was only their basketball team.
No, they're just the Rebels.
And also assume the track. Are they just the Rebels?
Yeah,
no, I think. Are you sure?
Yeah, at least according to their ESPN profile.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
UNLV Rebels football. Interesting. Yeah.
You know what? It's probably the same in basketball. We just have given them that nickname because of the that is their official name.
Damn. Is the Running Rebels.
That's crazy. Has anyone else ever been able to do
interesting. That made that university more interesting. University.
If not for the other interesting things about it, like the guy almost taking the Lakers job and then his manager getting killed because of it and then staying. Jerry Tarkanian?
Yeah, I remember them talking about that from Winning Time or something.
Yeah, that definitely happened. Nussmeier, that's a name to look out if you're a quarterback scouting NFL kids. I know Quinny's still at the top of most people's boards, but Nussmeier's boy looks like he could end up climbing up draft boards too. Washington State got their revenge on Washington. Of course, Washington's kind of retooling from their big time upswing last year. You have to replace a lot of starters. It bees like that sometimes. 24-19 goal line stand sealed it. Washington State, in happy, proud member of the Pac-2, got to take on and beat their rival. And then Memphis dropped Florida State to 0-3. And even with the bye week, Florida State could not get back in the winners bracket. Memphis probably will win the UNT division to AAC, or there will be somebody else in that realm. That's usually the pecking order. I'm hoping UNT can jump into that top tier of their conference, but it's really not how it goes. Looking for next week.
I'd like to see UNT win their conference.
I would love it.
Nice.
I would love it. It's going to start with Wisconsin or with Wyoming here, in Denton. The conference championship campaign goes on, and then that's how we get back into the college football playoff and win this national championship season. But other teams looking to compete for national championships, aren't you glad I didn't transfer? Texas will be playing Monroe this week, Saturday night for both of those games. So I know it's going to be hard to choose between UNT and Texas football, but unfortunately you will have to make that decision. Just kidding. You won't. There's no way Wyoming, North Texas is being aired on anything but ESPN+. God love us. There's no way. Especially if it's the night slate. Nope.
Yeah.
One of the top 25, there's a few top 25 games this week, which we love to see. This is, I think, the first time we've had this many in the season so far. Nebraska will host Illinois. Illinois is ranked. Brett Bielema has got his fucking Illini ranked. What is happening? Nebraska, obviously, Matt Rule's done a great job. They've got Patrick Mahomes Jr. Honestly, it's a pretty damn good team.
Let's just call him what he is. Daniel, the Patrick Mahomes cosplayer. That's more.
I honestly don't. I think for a true freshman quarterback, he's playing pretty damn well. So honestly, I'm not mad at him for. It's a little dick eating, but like at the same time,
a little.
Really good.
It's a lot, man.
It's really good. It's really good. If Kobe could do it, I'm gonna let this kid do it until he does it and he sucks at it.
Fair enough, but
we will be watching.
So weird.
This will be a great chance for Nebraska to solidify themselves as truly being back. Nebraska's competitive. Matt Rule is building a program, or is he bouncing to a bigger one? Who knows? It's college football. It's the fun of it.
Yeah.
Dabo Watch is back on. Clemson was off last week. We couldn't revel in the potential of Clemson losing, but don't worry. NC State will go into Clemson. They're ranked 21, not NC State. Clemson is. It'll be a Saturday morning game, so we hope to start our Saturdays off with a little bit of Dabo losing his shit because his team's losing to the fucking Wolfpack, who may be good, may not be good. I don't know. I haven't watched any of the NC State football games this year.
Neither of us.
Florida, Mississippi State. This one's pretty stupid, other than the fact that Billy Napier is absolutely playing for his or coaching for his job in every single game. Mississippi State's not particularly good this year. You would definitely need to go in there and beat them pretty handedly to feel good about keeping your job in another week. Because if you lose, you're done.
Wait a minute. They're both. One of them is ranked.
Been a pretty good running gag.
No, that's not a ranked game. Sorry.
Okay.
Running gag on SEC Shorts this whole year, where Death is just hanging out next to Florida every week.
I mean, honestly,
they're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, just hanging out,
just waiting,
Fair.
just waiting." Saturday afternoon, we got a couple of back-to-back ones here that are going to be ranked games. USC is going to play at Ann Arbor, so Michigan's going to have to host another program trying to bring its glory days back. USC is a solid team this year, perhaps maybe one that can play defense, even if they don't have a Heisman-winning quarterback now. This is a good chance to legitimize their ranking. Michigan went and put Orgy back as their starting quarterback, so they'll move to that version of football because the other guy just can't do enough. Like, he throws the ball better technically, but he's so not competent with the other things. It just, you might as well start running the wishbone with the running guy at this point, and like maybe he completes some passes. I think Michigan's smart for that move. Utah and Oklahoma State, as some are calling this, the Unc Bowl.
This is the Unc Bowl.
The oldest QB duel in college football history, perhaps. I don't know. This is a 25-year-old versus a 24-year-old. This is former Texas quarterback Cam Rising, even though I don't think he was here very long. Right, Texas very long. Oklahoma State, Alan Bowman started at Texas Tech, went on to Michigan, was supposed to be Michigan's answer before J.J. McCarthy. Yes, you heard that right. And then went to Oklahoma State, where he's been ever since.
Ooh, by the way, J.J. McCarthy, I think, just turned 21 this year. So you have some pretty old guys going up against a combined age of 49 years old. which I just want people to kind of put this into context. We had Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud recently play. Their combined age is younger than this game right here.
Incredible.
Just
Incredible.
insane.
Here's a weird one. This is not a ranked game, but the Iron Skillet will be played for the second to last time, potentially. TCU versus SMU. Don't believe TCU has cracked the top 25 yet either, but they are definitely looking to do so. SMU is not particularly amazing, but they have changed the quarterback, and perhaps there's a little magic to be happening in the season. So that is something to look at. Whether they will renew the Skillet, I'm not sure, but it is an interesting one to think about. Florida State, they've taken over the internet waves. If you're on Twitter and you follow any college football, you've probably gotten an invasion of Cal Berkeley woke agenda memes, as they call them.
They're so good.
Definitely a tough time for Florida State to be dealing with this kind of momentum coming into their house.
Yeah, the Cal Bears are about to invade Woke Campbell Stadium.
Yeah, it's Woke Campbell, Tallahassee. Everything's happening. Auburn thought they had it bad. Now it's gotten even worse. I don't even know where the rest of Cal's schedule is, but if they've got anyone else in the South, pray for them if they stay undefeated. But the memes are amazing, so I just want to see Cal continue to win for the memes.
Yeah, I am rooting for them to be undefeated for the rest of the year. Just go into the playoffs, go against another SEC school, get an upset here and there, and just let the people at Cal continue to give us gold.
Hey, we love it. Probably the biggest game of the weekend. Tennessee, Oklahoma, Saturday night. That's 6th ranked Tennessee. That's 15th ranked Oklahoma. Tennessee's offense has looked absolutely deadly. Their head coach, Josh Heupel, was the starting quarterback for the last Sooners championship, which was way back in the day. So something's got to give.
It's pre 9/11.
It is technically pre 9/11, just pre 9/11. Well, I guess there's another probably college football champion before 9/11 happened, technically. Or no, yes.
The season would have started, right? And that was it.
Yeah.
Oh, but
yeah.
All right. Here's the Southern schools that are still on on the schedule for the Cal Bears. So yes, they have Florida State. Then the very next week they get number 8 Miami.
Oh, duh, yeah, because they've still got to play an ACC schedule.
Yep, they have Wake Forest, NC State, which that doesn't really count as the South, but I guess that's so. Whatever. They're part of the Confederacy.
They're not the football powerhouses, unfortunately. If it was basketball, it'd be different.
And then they actually come over here to the DFW against SMU. That will be a funny meme game as well.
Yeah, that'll probably be a good one. So there you go. Beautiful. The ACC football. Another one to preview, Michigan State at BC. This one's an interesting one for Saturday night because Sparty is quietly 3-0 after having to have an embarrassing head coaching firing mid-season for awful purposes. You rebuild a program, get them back on track that quick. That's notable, even if it is a powerhouse like Michigan State. Boston College, few plays away from potentially being 4-0 right now. So, like I said earlier, I'm watching Boston College. I'm very interested in that program. Very interested in Michigan State. I get to see them in the same game and evaluate how real they are or if they're just off to good starts due to schedule. My final game, and truly one that's just for viewing pleasure, I think at this point, I don't know that either of these teams matter for too much. But Saturday night, the Baylor Bears are going to go up to Boulder, Colorado and play Deion's boys. Dave Aranda's got a pretty good defense this year, it looks like, thus far. They at least held Utah, who seems to be a pretty damn good team, in check pretty well, which I think was a big sign for Aranda. Offensively, whether they'll have enough to compete, maybe even steal a Big 12, remains to be seen. But the defense is where it needs to be, and that's important for him saving his job, probably. And then the Buffs need to steal every game they can get so that Deion can go ahead and bounce to a better place next year. You know, that's really where Dion is. Dion's not competing for the football playoff. He's not even really competing for the Big 12 championship. He's competing to win
For
as
Mike
many
McCarthy's job.
It doesn't make enough sense for that. Like, if anything, I'm stuck with Bill Belichick.
Nah.
You know? Yeah, no, they
You're
definitely
stuck with Zimmer.
No, Zimmer. If this season's going down, we're not in the NFL. If this season's going down, Zim might be the first one out the door. They don't know his shit.
McCarthy can't fire him though, so that's a weird thing. We'll go to the NFL later. Sorry,
it wouldn't be Mike. But that's it for college football anyway. I am going to watch that game because Shedeur Sanders still has so much talent. There's just so much to evaluate with him when you're thinking about, especially the top of the draft. Do you trust this player? Because if it was a creative player, if I'm playing Madden, I'm taking Shedeur number 1 overall, no question. But I would be so terrified for my job if this was real life and I had to take him because, like, the NFL just rips people to shreds when they're not mature. Like, even Bryce Young is mature about it, and they're ripping him to shreds. Yeah, it's a tough business, man. So we will let that transition into the NFL unless you guys have any other college football notes and newses that you would want to bring in.
No, I think I'm good, personally. I'll keep an eye out on that Cal Florida State game just to see how much longer Mike Norvell has in town.
Yeah, Mike Norvell, Billy Napier. Norvell has a better buffer because of last season.
Yeah, but you don't want to start 0-4.
The only thing that I think is unfortunate for him is that, again, Dion is such an easy fit into Florida State's job. Even, it's just too convenient for him to take that job. But honestly, and this is where it's funny, and this is where rivalries are great, it would be just as likely for Florida to do that with Dion as well, just because of the nature of the business. But that's beyond the point. The fact that we're even talking about Dion getting any other potential jobs after this is still pretty amazing. He's been a solid head coach. Like, I think if he was anyone else, he would be stuck at Colorado until they inevitably got rid of him or he was good enough to bounce. But because he's Deion Sanders, I truly don't know where the next chapter is going to take him in this journey. And I will be watching.
Same here. All right. Well, are we going to move things along, Captain O Captain?
We're here for the NFL.
All right. We haven't had any word from our producers, so
all in my ass.
I put up the little NFL logo on the top.
Okay. I didn't know if we were gonna do anything in between. So, all right, let's get into it, shall we? We're starting off with some NFL news and notes. And gentlemen, let's just get right into it. This is probably the biggest news cycle, or probably the biggest thing that's happened in NFL media relations. And I'll just let the man talk about it himself.
It was me being a healthy, active male. I mean, y'all thought I was bull jiving. Hey, Unc Get it in. Real talk. Hey,
got it in.
Justice for Paul Pierce. Justice for Paul Pierce. That's all I gotta say.
That's a great quote. Unc gets it in.
Unc Get it in is, my God.
Listen,
that's otherworldly.
If you're on the internet, there's no way you didn't hear about this. So I just came to start the NFL segment with jokes,
so to speak.
Listen, a lot of us heard the audio because that's all it was. Whether it was staged or real, who knows? Who cares? Because we're trying to get these jokes off. This is one of my favorite videos in relation to what had happened.
Damn, Unc.
Listen, we've learned one thing. All right, Shannon Sharp, despite all the allegations, he said it on his little podcast.
We don't know that Michel wasn't a French man.
Somebody could, those moans could.
Dwight Howard just beat a case because he could prove that it was consensual. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I love
But
that.
listen,
I love that.
Not that
I love
any of the
that's-
other facts
I
were
love
inaccurate.
that
None of the other facts.
the homophobia is still so strong in him. He feels he has to be like, and also this proves it. Just like you should probably be more focused on how you got on Instagram Live.
I think we should all take a real lesson here. If you make the mothership a lot of money in this version of the mothership, you can pretty much do whatever the fuck you want.
You just can't talk about Roger Goodell.
But Bill wasn't making that much money for them anymore by that point.
Are the 30 for 30s not still?
The 30 for 30s have still been, but at that point, they were starting to struggle with what to do with Bill.
Grantland not?
Grantland was sort of starting to have they're losing their pieces. You know what I mean? They were growing out of that Grantland thing, and Bill was starting to be the ringer. I mean, you look at what the ringer's been. I don't know. Maybe the ESPN was right.
Maybe. Now, here's one thing. For one day and one day only, Cat Williams called him apparently on the podcast, and he's like, "Well, you're not gay today." So that was a funny little clip from that. I don't have that clip, but I do have this. Again, these are some of my favorite videos of people just cracking jokes at Shannon Sharp's expense. Someone said this was Shannon Sharp on IG Live.
Wonderful. I love this freaky stuff like that. Go ahead now. Just let yourself go. Come on now. I'm going to let myself go too. I'm feeling something too. This ain't like me. I don't usually go this quick. Yeah, but I'm going after.
We'll stop it right there.
Perfectly good baked potato.
Perfectly great baked potato. And then, of course, this was another video that actually involves Shannon Sharp.
You lose it, you never win.
Oh, boy!
That stuff is...
Yeah!
Before Skip Bayless ruined his life.
Yep, and they
not,
were all...
Not his life. I meant Skip Bayless ruined his own life.
Yes. And people were saying, yeah, that was Shannon Sharp in Michelle's ear. Listen, the memes were great. This was a funny little story that happened, whether it was organic or not, whether it really was staged. I don't care. This was just a nice little opener. Just kind of get things nice and ready for the rest of what happened.
Is he selling merch about it?
He is, and that's weird. And I hate the era that we live in now, where it's like, well, everything has to have merch now. Like it doesn't. Why? And that would lead me to believe that it's kind of staged.
But honestly, he's done a good job of kind of keeping a lot of memeable situations. Because I forgot about how probably the greatest video that I think he's given us. I wish I would have thought about it before, but where he's walking with his dog in the airport.
Oh yeah,
he just really like that is one of the. That was one of the funniest fucking. That's a great reaction meme. That's a 10 out of 10 reaction meme. Absolutely. Was that staged? I will never know, but we love it. It's just who he is. It's the brand.
It is. And
unless you're Paul Pierce, you're good.
Yeah. Apparently.
Sorry, Truth.
That's all right. Well, you know what? Let's get on with the rest of the news and notes that we have here. Just a couple quick notes, of course. So, receivers are down all across the league. Now, I'm not one to help out my fellow host on their PTR picks, but you are very silly to be picking the Rams to win when both Puka Nacua, who is on IR, and now Cooper Kupp, who will be missing a couple weeks, are set to be missing.
You don't understand the next man up mentality.
Not on that Rams team. There's not a next man up.
There's technically a next man up.
Technically, yes. Are they good? Does Matthew Stafford trust them? The answer is probably no. But they are playing the San Francisco 49ers, and the only one person has picked the Rams in our PTR picks to beat the 49ers. And I get it. It's a hate pick, and you could be rewarded for it greatly.
I was last week.
You definitely were. Now, Cooper Kupp, not the only big name wide receiver to be missing time. Of course, his fellow teammate Puka Nacua is on IR, set to miss the next 3 games. We have Deebo Samuel out for an extended period of time, hurt himself in that Minnesota Vikings game. And then A.J. Brown will be missing some time. I don't believe either receiver has been I don't think any of these receivers actually been designated for IR. Deebo might have or might be placed on IR. depending on the severity. But until then, we'll be seeing what happens with that. Now, we'll move on to some more news.
No, yeah. Everybody who's obsessed with fantasy football is having a terrible year.
It's a terrible time.
Absolutely. I'm raking it in my dynasty league. I was able to pull off some pretty decent trades today.
Were you able to get rid of a Christian McCaffrey, or did you have Christian McCaffrey in?
No, but I took advantage of some people who might need some things so that I could get some things I needed, and it was fun.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Now,
master of his craft.
Although, to be fair, I did build them all out on websites and got them as close to being fair trades as I could, according to the websites.
All right.
It's very friendly of you.
Very friendly.
I think what you did was that you took a screenshot and then edited it, and then you sent the screenshot.
Yeah, it can't evaluate the rest of your team. Maybe there are sites that get further into it that do that. We have to plug in your entire league. I wasn't going through all that work. But anyway, sorry. No one cares about fantasy football except for the people actively playing it while they're playing it. So
yeah, except for anyone who has Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, Christian McCaffrey, or Puka Nacua.
That's right. And who knows? We may have more starts coming down in week 3. It's just the nature of the game. Now, let's talk about somebody who won't be playing anytime soon, and not due to injury, but due to other circumstances.
Jordan Phillips?
No. Bryce Young. All right. Big news. We've all heard about it. He's been benched for Andy Dalton, and there's been a lot of discourse over the decision to bench Bryce Young. And I'm just going to give my 2 cents. I think Patrick, feel free to do the same as well on this one. Bryce Young, let's be real. He is historically small at the position. I hope we have it somewhere on vinyl, on wax, recording somewhere, where whenever we were talking about his draft class, I wasn't sold on the guy because he is historically small and he does not have anything that separates him despite his size. So, for example, you have Kyler Murray, right? They're both about the same height. Here's the problem. Here's the difference, though. Kyler Murray is like an NFL creative player in the sense that he has elite speed and quickness and has a rocket of an arm. The only problem is he is about 5'10", but he has physical traits that allow him to make up for his lack of stature. And also, if you look at the way he's built, he is more densely built compared to Bryce Young, who looks rail thin, came in 5'10", definitely under 200 pounds. And he didn't have an elite arm. He had okay quickness, but he doesn't have incredible straight line speed either. So you were really hoping that he could win in the same way that Drew Brees won. But you also look at the way Drew Brees was built. He was built a little bit more dense. Before the rotator cuff surgery, and before his arm fell out at the end of his career, he had good zip on the ball. He had great touch. He played the game so well from within the pocket. And maybe not 5'10", he's probably closer to 6 feet even, if we're being honest with ourselves. Still a little bit on the diminutive size of things. And then, of course, we know about Russ Wilson. We all know that he loved to throw the ball deep. And in his prime, he could scramble. He could definitely run for some yards. He was a threat in the running game. Of course, the wheels have fallen off with him now at this point in his career.
Don't worry, he'll be somebody's quarterback again by the end of the season.
Probably, right? But here's the thing. He found ways to make up for his lack of height. But here's the thing with all these quarterbacks. You still have to build your offense around somebody who can't see over the line, right? Who's going to struggle to throw over their linemen. Yeah, those linemen aren't standing completely straight, but neither is your quarterback. So there's going to be times where that ball is going to either have to go through the windows or have to go over the offensive linemen themselves. And it wasn't happening in Carolina for Bryce Young. One, the offense wasn't built around him. That coaching staff that they had last year with Frank Reich historically had never worked with a quarterback under 6 feet before. All of his starting quarterbacks, whether as an offensive coordinator or a head coach, 6'3" or taller, right? And then you look at this one, Dave Canales. He worked with Baker Mayfield, who's not the tallest guy, but I think he's about 6'1", 6'2". So, a little bit closer to NFL average height. And this offense that they created for him, this offensive cast that they created this applied to Bryce Young, it's some of the worst in the league. So he's in a bad environment with a very limited skill set. Shouldn't have gotten first overall. And so he was just kind of put in a position to fail. At least that's my opinion on it. Now, he's benched, and I don't see a world where, with the way that they have the rookie salary cap is structured, I don't see a world where Carolina has to be married to the guy. They can move on. They can just roll Andy Dalton out there for the next 14 games, 15 games, and then just hope that somebody in college football develops into that can't miss prospect or that obvious number 1 overall pick, because that's what Carolina's going to get. And as far as Bryce Young's career goes, unless he goes to Arizona.
And also maybe don't just draft a number 1 quarterback because you can. Maybe just take the best player in college football because your team sucks at everything.
Exactly. And maybe in one of my favorite, NFL media guys, Ben Solik, put this out there. He said the one offense that he can run is probably Miami's offense because of what they had, one, what the weapons are like, 2, the spacing that is created both with the passing game and with the blocking scheme for Tua Tagovailoa, who himself is not a tall guy either. He is about 6 feet himself. So,
well, it certainly feels like Miami and Los Angeles would be the most logical destinations should the Panthers move on from Bryce Young at the end of the season.
Yeah, and then when you say Los Angeles, the Rams? You feel like that's a good landing spot for him?
Yeah, I mean, why not? You think Stafford? I mean, shit, I could see Stafford having a bad season this year if the Rams are so beat up, and then he's just like, I got my ring, dude. Whatever. Here, have 9. I'm out.
I can't see a situation where Matt Stafford, at least not publicly, but privately, asks for a trade out just for a better situation. But I don't see the Rams wanting to give up.
I feel like Matt Stafford's at the point in his career where I wouldn't be surprised if he's just ready to be done with it. I feel like he's taken more of a beating than Flacco and Matt Ryan, who played way longer than maybe they probably should have.
You might not be familiar with Matthew Stafford's wife. I don't think she's going to want to leave LA anytime soon.
Well, yeah, exactly. Now you don't have to. You just get to hang out in LA retired, and you don't have to take any more CTE.
That's 1,000% more likely, I think. Unless for some reason the Cowboys were like, hey, Matthew Stafford, you want to come play here? I could see him doing that for a year, but not as a backup, so it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Sadly.
We'll see what happens with that. But as far as with Bryce Young's concerned, he has very limited landing spots to where he can go. And let's be real, as far as an avenue to becoming a full-time starter in the league again, so much is going to have to happen. And the film that they put out there, or that he put out there in this previous game, was terrible. Like, the guy was jump passing almost every single throw, it felt like. And he just doesn't look like an NFL quarterback right now. His confidence is probably shot, if we're being real. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of those cases of guys who they had a great college career, comes into a bad situation in the pros, and just gets the yips and just never recovers. But we'll see what happens with that. But while we're still on QB talk, there is more QB news to be had. And I mentioned his name earlier. And this one's less of news and notes and more just kind of discussion for us to have. So, Tua Tagovailoa, as we all saw, hurt yet again with yet another concussion. I'm not going to show it. NFL Network did that. I don't know why they had that shit ready to show all the times that his head bounced off the turf. But hey, we're here now. That's happened. That's passed. And the current news is Tua Tagovailoa is on IR. Will miss the next 4 games. The Miami Dolphins have signed God, what's his name? I already forgot his name. Huntley. Yeah. Went out and got him. Tyler Huntley. Weirdly enough, has a Pro Bowl to his name, which he shouldn't, but he does. So it's very funny to see Miami Dolphins get Pro Bowl.
Gotta go get a Pro Bowler off the scrap heap.
Off the scrap heap. That's such a weird thing for them to be able to say.
I mean, they had Flacco and Tannehill right there. Well, I mean, not Flacco, but Tannehill right there.
They did, and I don't like. And obviously, I don't think Tannehill is like a solution, but he is a Band-Aid, right? For a situation that needs a Band-Aid.
Still working out?
Probably. And who knows? They might give him a call. But
he's going to be the new offensive coordinator of Texas A&M by next season.
Maybe. Who knows? But at least going forward for this discussion with Tua, listen, do I think Miami did the right thing by putting him on IR? Maybe, in that it buys him some time to have a discussion with Tua, and not necessarily rush Tua back either, because it's a mandatory 4 games. I don't know if they have an early bye week or not, Patrick. If you could look that up for me when their bye week is, but I think enough is enough, Tua. You need to call it a career right here, because it's so ridiculous now. You've gotten a concussion almost every season you've been in the league, and in one season you had what, 2 or 3, and in one it looked like you died out on the field, right? Who can forget the way that his body twitched up? And
the weekend of the Sunday the 13th, they have a bye. October.
So what week is that for the NFL? Like, is that week 5, 6?
3 more weeks from now. They've got
all right,
1,
so
2, 3 games to play. Then they'll have a bye after that.
All right, so he'll probably be out for a total of 5 weeks, because they don't count the bye week towards games that you miss once you're on IR, I don't think. So just going forward, I think this guy really needs to start actually forgetting that like football player mentality of like, hey, I got to go out there. I'm good. I'm healthy. I'm like, bro, start thinking about your life, or you're going to end up like Junior Seau and blowing your brains out, leaving a note for your family to just like pick up the pieces of what could be, because it's like, we know how many concussions you got. All right. We know how bad it is. That you got paid. Have something.
I just want to interject, just say we actually do not have any idea how many concussions he has.
Well, we know how many have been reported.
They say he's had, but yeah.
We know how many they say he's had, and we can kind of go off of some of the films, like, hey, the number of times that his head is bounced off the.
I'm just wondering about like college, where it was a lot easier to hide it.
Yeah,
and then who knows?
It's youth football too. Like it's really a lifetime.
And that's
football.
He probably had so many. He probably gets more now as an adult because he had more as a kid than other people did.
Yeah,
if I had to guess.
Yeah, and so I think somebody needs to save him from himself. Is my point on this. I know there are people that want to hold out hope that he can come back, and then maybe he doesn't get one again. But this is the NFL, and some people are like, well, he can just put on the Guardian cap, and it's like, man, that Guardian cap should have been on his head years ago. If you want to go that route, it's not a a fix-all solution. That Guardian cap, it will dramatically decrease, but when you have a quarterback who's already experienced it so many times, at this point, like, how much is it really going to help him? If anything, what's going to help him most is walking away. He has that guaranteed money in there. Sure, he might have to pay some of it back, but at the end of the day, he has generational money already in the bank account. I just want to see the guy walk away for his own sake, because I don't want to see something else tragic happen. Like another, Hamlin situation where we saw a guy die on the field, but this time there is no coming back.
Well, he did it. He was responsible for this one, so.
I mean, yeah,
that's not fair.
And, the internet, the internet had their fun with that.
He put him in the ambulance.
He didn't really do anything. No, Tua hit him
head first into his chest. So that could have been any other
videotape's always going to have him. Videotape's always going to have him on it.
I think the videotape shows he didn't do a whole lot there.
Yeah, Damar Hamlin in the video. That's all that matters.
And then all he really has to do is pull up a 2001 Sports Center. What do they call it? What was the big hit section called?
Oh, honestly,
dude, every Sunday
I was just watching people post like shit from like the early 2010s. Like the Harbaugh 49ers were absolutely just giving people CTE left and right.
So were the Ryan Clark led Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, Steelers. That Bengals,
the Patriots, for sure.
Yeah, there was so much CTE being passed around in the 2010s. Yeah. Tua, go be a family man. Probably.
I mean, it's better than this. It's better than this. At least that's what I'm throwing out there. Patrick, I don't know if you have any opinion on the situation.
It's I mean, I know what I would do, but there's no there's no telling. It's his decision. And the best thing they can do is give him as much time as possible to figure out what he really wants to do with it. That's pretty much it.
He needs to play next week.
It's a very unfortunate situation for everybody involved.
In truth, that is very true. Well, there is no real easy way to get transition from the heavy topics, but we're gonna do it anyway. All right. Because now it's time for a look in on our Pass the Rock Week 2 picks and our overall standings. Oh, the football gods were not so kind to me, but they were kind to you guys, at least sort of. You guys broke 500.
I mean, you were one game worse than us. It's not like...
Listen, yeah, but one of those games was just, victory was snatched from, defeat was snatched from the jaws of victory, and that led me to go 7-9 this week. Patrick, you and I were tied 18-14. Becky's 14-18. He can still come.
This is how you build him. I'm building a program.
Long season. He already cut his deficit pretty quickly. So
yeah.
Well, not really. I guess
he's 4 games back instead of
1. Instead of 5. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna keep looking at these picks. We've already submitted, I think, our picks on our spreadsheet here.
Yeah, but I mean, you have until tomorrow night to make any changes you'd like.
I'm confident.
Still trying to come up with some better ideas on graphics. It looks gross listing out every single game, so I'm not sure how to do it. Maybe I only list ones we don't unanimously pick. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But those are going to look different every week.
Maybe just list out the most egregious picks.
Yeah, I see that.
Just the ones that make us really look like a fool.
Just right under your loss number. Be like, really? You picked Carolina to win.
Which I believe somebody has. Yeah. Yeah, you got Carolina against the Raiders.
Fair, if you just keep throwing that out there, I bet you'll get one.
Andy Dalton. Hey, it's positive vibes. Andy Dalton
theory.
And then the Raiders, bro. The Raiders are kind of goofy. They're good defensively, a little goofy offensively. I don't know.
You have the worst roster in football on one side and then a pretty okay roster on the other. That's fine. Because you know what? Now we have to recap the week that was, and we're going to go ahead and start. I'm going to kick things off with this one. Oh, wait. Actually, no, wait. Before we actually do that, I wanted to list this on the rundown, but I didn't. But I'm going to be introducing highlights and lowlights of the week that was from certain players. And we're going to start with the lowlights first. All right. For one, I want our audience who's watching this to guess who this could possibly be about. What quarter? Oh, that was perfect. There's smoke coming out of Betty's mouth.
I think you thought that video was going to last a little longer.
Possibly. You better leave that in there. So what?
It's going to be awkward to cut it out. So,
right? Which NFL player has this on the brain where it can only be one man who's going to be on this list? I can predict all season.
Can I just suggest that it's both of the 2023 and 2024 class of quarterbacks, save for C.J. Stroud?
You definitely could, but there's one who's just really making it. Yeah, he's really making a name for himself.
Spears in there, 3rd and goal. Levis looking. Levis tripped. He tried to shovel it. That ball is free, and the Jets have it. We saw last week.
That's on the running baller.
No, not at all. Yeah. You know what I loved about this play?
He's the next Sanchez, dude. It's awesome.
He's something else, man. He is something else. He is just the next Will Levis. Because what he has done these last 2 weeks has given us some grade A turnover worthy plays. And then I wish I could find the clip of this, or I had more time to find the clip of this, but it was Brian Callahan coming out. The camera saw it. We all know what he mouthed. He's like, "What the fuck were you doing there?" And then he comes on to the press conference And then what does he do? He does something I've never seen a coach really do. There's coach speak for throwing your players under the bus, and then there's fan speak for throwing players on the bus. This coach decided to go full fan mode. And like, he's a grown up. He should know better than that. He cost us 3 points on that with those possessions. I've never seen a coach say that about a player. So just explicit.
After that week 1 pick, like I said, that was supposed to be his worst moment, and he keeps coming up with other ways. It's fair, I think, for the coach to be like, no, I've tried everything else. Let's try this.
Yes, and you know what? I liked it. It's a breath of fresh air. Now, if he does it all season long, at some point, it's going to come back to you, Brian Callahan. But in the meantime, our winner of the low light of the week, in terms of just a singular play, goes to Will Levis. And then here comes our highlights. These are 2 guys that I did not expect to really put on here, but these were some of my favorite plays that I saw.
I don't even know if that would work.
Here's one that, like, you know what? If you're the player if you're the defender in this situation, you should be embarrassed and you should retire.
He put on, I think it was Rodriguez, Malcolm Rodriguez, the old school physical linebacker. Just great vision by Baker.
You got shook out your shoes by Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, who's not known for a runner. We've all seen him get run down by the police before. All right. Baker Mayfield, Baker May put you on your ass. Now, here is another play from a fellow teammate of his. I don't know. Well, fellow Sooner. And he's always good for this kind of plays. Yep. It's good old Kyler Murray. Let's see him. This was on a 99-yard touchdown drive.
Junior around. Now they got him in the slot. Murray's looking for him. Pressure coming. Got away from Verse. Still on the move. Still on his feet. Throws to the end zone. It is caught by Elijah Higgins for the touchdown.
That's why you got to tackle.
Yeah. Now, when Kyler's on, he is so good for these highlight plays. All right, he's elusive. You see the can of an arm right there. You know, he is capable of some boneheaded plays. There's a reason why the guy kind of fluctuates between maybe being a borderline, top 12 guy to being somewhere average. But moments like this, you see why he was taken first overall, and you see why he's put on the highlight of the week. But there's 2 contenders.
I got bad news, though.
What's the bad news?
Black Ops 6 releases October 25th.
All right. Well, until that day, until the day that game drops, you can kind of count on
Arizona win enough to get to lock in their playoff spot.
2 more weeks? Can they get 2 more? Well, 2 more wins, get them into the playoffs.
Will it by the? Hey, listen, the NFC's not looking so hot. Maybe they can't sneak in there with a not so focused Kyler Murray. But gentlemen,
I don't know. Some teams don't lose.
Right? All right there. All right, Patrick. Now, guys, we can only have one winner. These were my 2 submissions. Does anybody want to vote for Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, honestly, I would give Baker that. I would give Baker that for sure. Even though it was the linebacker's fault, they just looked cooler.
All right. Yeah. Baker Mayfield, congratulations. You have the highlight of the week on Pass the Rock.
Baker Mayfield.
Now we'll start with the recapping of the week, and we're going to start with the winners first. And who is that other than this place? This
Minnesota!
And what was the play of the game? What's something that we should show? What other than this?
So far in the Viking defense, 2nd down 9. Darnold getting messy, going deep, and he's got Jefferson. It's a foot race downfield with Brown. Shifting gears. Getting a block. That's 6.
Before we talk about the game.
Unrelated question. Did that umpire just lock in his Super Bowl job right there? Like, you think that just based off that one play, the referee he's already on staff? Like, they're already penciling him in for the Super Bowl?
What?
They should just be the umpire.
You're rewarded in the officiating by like how good you do is who gets the postseason games and the Super Bowl games.
Bethke, I want to.
Did you not watch that clip and watch the? Have you not seen the ref in that?
I guess not. I guess I missed that part.
No,
show it again. What are we?
No, we're showing you
Stop
again.
looking at the purple people.
So far in the Viking defense, 2nd down 9. Darnold getting messy, going deep, and he's got Jefferson. He's got Jefferson. It's a foot race downfield with Brown, shifting gears, getting a block. That's 6.
Bro, that ref was running a course.
Really impressive.
Okay, I was worried that it was going to be a deal where the ref just accidentally just went straight into a 49er and just made the whole play happen.
No,
okay.
He stride for stride.
I was like, don't take this away from me.
No,
I was like, I saw Sam Darnold throw the ball in the air 53 yards.
Yeah. No. It was an amazing throw. It was an amazing catch, but it was almost more amazing that referee was able to
his turnaround and pivot. Yeah, it was a very hockey ref move there.
There was 2 things that impressed me about the play that had nothing to do with Jefferson or Darnold. One was the ref, and I want that ref tested for drugs. Listen to me. If the players can't be juiced, neither can the refs. So I want to know. I want that ref blood tested, and then if he's juiced, go ahead and let the players juice. And then the next thing,
Jalen Naylor
came out of nowhere, just absolutely blazing speed. As a matter of fact, he probably would have beaten everybody else to the end zone too.
Well, it looked like he also could have been a target, but obviously Sam went for the whole shebang instead of went for the.
And he went for the right.
They had just failed to convert on 4th down right there, right? Or was that a fumble? It was either a fumble or they failed to convert on 4th down right there. So we did
that was
an
the
immediate.
First play.
It was like first or second play. I can't remember. You might start it again. I can't remember. It was very quick after. That's why we're buried so deep, and they weren't ready for it because they didn't.
So far in the Viking defense, 2nd.
So
yeah, we ran the ball once. Ran the ball once to give him some drop room, and then.
So he could have had a 98-yard pass, but instead we got.
Yeah, he needed that extra. He needed that yard.
He did it, and now I'm going to give a lot of credit to Darnold in this one because the Darnold that I know, and he can still come out at any point.
We've seen it at least once a game so far.
Yeah, he would have panicked in that situation, back to the end zone. Probably could have walked into a sack, maybe not on that play, but just in general, yeah, or a safety, or a sack safety in this case.
I was saying about running out of the back of the end zone.
Yeah, or have done one. You know, he could have pulled the what's that guy?
Was that Orlovsky or was it Kit?
Orlovsky, yeah, that was Dan.
Orlovsky did that one. I think someone else has done it recently too. But Orlovsky still.
Yeah, we did.
Someone did one on Orlovsky. I don't remember who it was.
Gardner Minshew or something.
Yeah, I think it was Gardner Minshew actually. Yeah.
Could have been. But in this game, listen, Minnesota Vikings, obviously they won an impressive win against the San Francisco 49ers. Yo, this was a team, the Vikings, they were firing on all cylinders.
Sorry, Jimmy G did it.
Oh, look at that. Perfect. Fits who we're talking about. But listen, on this game, I didn't watch too much of this game, so Patrick, you'll have to fill in the blanks here. But I'll just tell you what I know from this, right? You had a balanced attack from the Minnesota Vikings offense. You had over 140 yards rushing, 6 yards a carry, so they were running it down the 49ers defense. You had Sam Darnold played a really good game. Just played a really good game for Sam Darnold. Game might have been one of his better games, honestly. And then, of course, you had Justin Jefferson, 4 catches, 130-plus yards, 97 of those coming on one play. But it was the play of the game.
And a quad injury.
And then the Minnesota Vikings defense gave hell to that San Francisco 49ers offense. Sure, they gave up some stuff in the run game, but that's the San Francisco's strength. They're going to do that. They're going to get their yards on the ground. And then, Brock Purdy, he got his, if you just look based on the stats, right? 319 yards passing in the air. You think, they were moving the ball. But it was on the key downs where they got Brock Purdy to make mistakes or take sacks. And Brian Flores, absolute madman with some of the blitz that they were sending. I saw some clips of some of the unique blitz packages that they were sending at Brock Purdy, confusing the guy. And man, Minnesota looks impressive across 2 weeks. But Patrick, you watched the whole game. Tell us more about what you saw from your perspective.
Yeah, it was a pretty solid effort. A little bit better than I expected, honestly. They seem to have an idea of how to keep. It doesn't seem like anyone on the offense is being asked to do too much. It was nice to see Darnold run a drive down the field at the end of the game. without wide receiver 1 or 2, and obviously we haven't had tight end 1 yet this year, so he's out there with wide receivers 3, 4, 5, and a tight end 2. And then whatever spare running backs we're cycling through every once in a while. Aaron Jones is pretty good. I shouldn't call him a spare. I'm so used to us having a bad – after last year, it was so bad that I'm triggered. But, yeah, and then defensively, I always keep forgetting this guy's name. He had the pick 6 last week.
Edit this.
Andrew Van Ginkel. That long
Van Ginkel. How can you
blonde-haired
forget
guy. I keep it's AVG in my head, so I have to remember what it stands for.
Van Ginkel.
He almost got another one against Purdy from like the 3-yard line. Yeah, it's not going to be a top defense when it comes to yards and points throughout the year. But the way they clamp down in certain situations looks great right now. Still gonna do the pump the brakes conversation that I had last week, just because it is week 2. It's the NFL. Things will turn around. The 49ers, I just have to assume, are going to look better later in the year. But who knows?
Who knows? They got a lot of injuries that they're dealing with right now.
Maybe some people turn back into pumpkins, and we see what all that looks like. But the Vikings, I'm happy so far. This is better than I expected, so keep it up, boys. And I'll keep talking trash to y'all until I can't anymore.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. Well, let's move on to the next game that was actually happening around the same time. Only Skip Bayless can talk about it.
All in my ass.
All in his ass. And we can look at and he's talking about this man right here on the screen. It's Jared Jones, just giving you a good old damn. 35-16 at halftime. But this was probably the most egregious thing that I saw during the game. Becky, you might disagree, but for me, this stops. Freaky ass Derek Carr with the Michael Jackson crotch grab. How dare you? How dare you?
Ralph Northam, dude.
That? All right, listen. I obviously do not root for the star on your cap, the star on their helmet, but there is one thing I will not tolerate from anybody. And that's allowing Derek Carr to look like a superstar and have moments like that. I was just like, God damn it, why? Because I have an anti-Carr agenda, as some people may know. And what we saw here was a game that I was shocked by. Becky, you were probably somewhere in between being shocked and just being kind of apathetic. I don't know. You'll tell me here in a second. But just from what I was watching on this game, man, the Saints, their offense, they just had their way with moving the linebackers around, moving the defensive ends, moving the D tackles all left and right, and they were able to pick on the secondary.
Moving is a kind way to put it when it comes to the defensive tackles.
No, absolutely. But just based on what the offense that the Saints are running systemically, right, from a philosophical standpoint, it's a lot of east and west, a lot of horizontal, and then hoping to create windows in the pass game for easy layup throws. And Derek Carr got a bunch of those, you know. A lot of it was being schemed. Like Mike Zimmer was out-schemed in this one by Clint Kubiak, and the Saints were able to just execute on each and every single drive. I was honestly surprised.
Mike Zimmer specifically said it wasn't a scheme issue.
I don't care what he says.
Funny. There's been a lot of funny things that have come out.
No. Listen. He can say that all he wants to save face, but he was out-schemed for sure. And obviously, you do need the Jimmies and the Joes to execute those X's and O's. But I thought the Cowboys had some of those. Obviously, not in the defensive tackle department. And yes, when you run bait, I've learned this now from, I believe it's who's our guy here, Jeff Kavanaugh. He put this out there. He's like, listen, whenever Zimmer wants to run base, Kavanaugh. Yeah. Whenever he wants to run base defense, he's going to take Overshawn out of the game, and he's going to go in with a little bit heavier set personnel, and that came back to bite him in this game. You definitely needed all the athleticism you could have gotten on the field. Overshawn gives you that. Omarion is really good in that department.
He was like, "Where's Harrison Smith?"
You look at the offense. The offense, they were able to move the ball, but they weren't able to get touchdowns, and they weren't able to keep pace, and then eventually it came back to bite them in the second half, and then you get that second Dak interception where he's pressing, trying to make a play happen. And yeah, you end up with one of the more surprising blowouts in this game. But Bethke, this is your team. I'm going to give you the floor. You tell me what you saw. You tell me how you left feeling this game, or how you felt about the team after this game ended.
It definitely was pretty funny because it was almost immediately that the exact problems were back in the face of the general manager and his son, and that was pretty nice. That is painful to watch in the moment, but more rewarding as it goes because it's just like, you know what I mean? But lack of effort was probably the most concerning thing, right? And this is where if you want to defend Mike Zimmer, and if you want to say the scheme wasn't all the, wasn't just about the scheme, or the scheme wasn't the most important part, all of the defensive tackles were atrocious, like awful, like didn't fill gaps, didn't really try hard. We're getting pushed around like tumbleweeds. That's not good. And then the safeties just weren't, just decided they weren't going to communicate. Like, Hooker made some business decisions too on run defense that you don't want to see that. So I think that there's a lot to be learned. The good news is, or the bad news, depending on how you look at it, I think they have personnel to fix all of it but the defensive tackle. The issue is that why do we have to notice this before the coaches do all the time when it comes to the Cowboys? And like, there was no adaptability on this offense. I think it's pretty fair to say that DeMarvion Overshown should not be used sparingly, to say the least.
Yeah.
He should be playing a lot. Marist was pretty bad. Like, and I know he's young, and I'm not putting that on him. I'm not saying he's a bust or a waste of time, but he could not figure out how to do his job in the midst of that chaos. And DeMarvion just goes off instinct. And when shit is that bad, I just need the dudes with the instinct now. There's also a part of this where Marshawn Nealon doesn't look nearly as like he looks fine, but it looks like that's going to be a long journey this season. Golson on the other side looks like a downgrade from the other guys that we've had like him in the past. And then D Law is a little bit of a situation because, I know he wants to get another contract before it's all said and done. But the reality is I might need him to be a more human version of himself so that the contract matches what we're going to get out of him for the remainder of his career. But that was really frustrating defensively. There was just a lot of bad. It looked like there was all the bad communication, all the give up, all the I don't want to be here right now that you just shouldn't have to expect when it comes to NFL players. But if there's one franchise that's going to go out of their way to prove to you how much they don't care or how little they're going to prepare, it's the Dallas Cowboys every time. Jalen Brooks, offensively, I'm not going to get into the offense. The run game's clearly still a problem. Run blocking still something we need to see. There's no way I can judge the offense based off of that game. There's just no way. Jalen Brooks, you're the fall guy. And it's not your fault for literally being the fall guy that started the interception that definitely sealed the blowout. Because at the end of the day, if they score that touchdown, it's 28-20, and then they get the ball back at the end of the half. So I don't care how you want to spin that. There was still always the possibility of them letting up. What was the final score? 44 points?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, the defense never got better. So it doesn't really matter what Jalen Brooks did either. But Jalen Brooks, unfortunately, is another microcosm of why people are upset. They drafted Flournoy. They drafted Tolbert. Tolbert had a rough start to his career. Things look nice. He's a great physical prospect. He's playing. Cool. He wasn't perfect, but I'm excited to see him playing. It looks better every week. Flournoy, you love him. You think you stole him in the 6th round. You think everybody's stupid for not liking this small school kid. Then you bring him in. He's amazing at camp. Then he has a hell of a preseason. I think he scored in 2 or 3 or all of the preseason games. And then he's just DNP 6-man to Jalen Brooks. To who? Jalen Brooks hasn't done anything. He was a 6th-round receiver, I think, 2 years ago. Jalen Brooks hasn't been a part of this group. Jalen Brooks is not owed anything. And if you look back into the early parts of this game, one of the drives they fail on, there's a Brandon Cooks play, that a reverse. It looks like it has at least enough to maybe get positive yards, if not potentially breaks for the first down, which I think would have put them first and goal. Instead, this kid just apathetically kind of hugs the safety and then gets tossed to the side, to which Brandon Cooks then gets tackled for a loss. And that was before he trips and falls on the interception. So again, it's not Jalen Brooks' fault by any means that this was a blowout. But the fact that this is still the way this team decides who gets to play and who doesn't feels like an indictment on the program once again. Because you don't have defensive tackles, and even if you get healthy and start playing with more effort, that's still a problem. And then you have this situation, like I said, where it makes no sense, especially because CD isn't the true number one that has to be number one. Like if Flournoy is a big guy that can stretch a field, then why is Flournoy and Tolbert not being out there? It just is one of those simple things that if you were in Madden, you would totally do this. You would set your offense to put the most talented players out there possible. And so it's baffling. And then my final,
you'd put Zeke at center. You would.
Exactly. You would do the goofy shit, right? That frustrated me. Hopefully Jalen Brooks sees his minutes or sees his snaps drastically cut and Flournoy gets to play so that we get to see what the full group of guys that I think we actually are moving forward with will look like. Shout out to Luke Schoonmaker. He had a good game. The one positive out of this entire game is that Schoonmaker looked like a really solid-ass tight end for the first time in his NFL career. But what I wanted to ask you already showed the video once. I'm going to show it to you guys one more time and ask you to watch it very closely, okay? Look at Jerry. Look at Steven. Is it getting less convincing?
I was never convinced in the first place. But if I have to be objective, right? Yeah, every year progressively feels like, yeah, man, they don't care. Like, if they really cared, if this really bothered them, right, they would go ahead, just both of them, just step away from the personnel decisions, or even at least make
it's not even that, dude. They would just stop being fucking cheap. They are literally doing so well drafting. They are just fucking cheap.
But that's what I mean by them stepping away from the personnel. Yeah. Player personnel is more than just the draft. It's also signing, right? It's like, listen, let Will McClay go out there, go prioritize your interior defensive line, prioritize getting some running backs. You don't have to get a first round running back, but there's plenty of guys out there in the third, fourth round who could make a difference for your team.
I mean,
right?
I think Dalvin Cook might already be better than a couple of guys they run out there, but he hasn't been on the brand long enough, like Jacob was saying.
No, that's actually different. So Dalvin Cook will most likely – so that's good and bad. So what you're saying is not exactly the same narrative you're trying to hit, but unfortunately it is the same narrative you're trying to hit a little bit. Because so Dalvin Cook has not played yet because he's still physically ramping up to play. That is totally so. From what I understand, Dalvin Cook would be playing if he would.
They brought him in too late.
If he would have played sooner, he probably.
I wanted to bring up. There's a quote from when Jerry used to do a radio show weekly on the Ticket, and they would take calls, which is absolutely hilarious. And Jerry's getting mad at some guy, and I think it's not quite a direct quote. It's going to be a close paraphrase. He said, "The deal I made when I bought the team was I would run the team." And then he goes on to say, "Did you like those 3 Super Bowls? I bet you did. I bet you did very much."
Hasn't aged well. But like I said, I mean, it's one of those things where it's remarkable how well they can do in the draft. And I get where that would make them cocky, as if they can just continue to draft these all-stars and these competent pieces. But it's just hilarious that they keep expecting us not to notice, the fact that you moved on from the receiver, even though you could have afforded to keep him, probably because of disciplinary reasons. If now, knowing what we know now, then you don't go out and sign any defensive tackle, even though there were a few on the market that were very talented, and absolutely was a position of need. You probably already knew that the draft wasn't going to have anything for you that was immediate help. You still may like Mozzie, but you knew after year one that Mozzie's development is just going to be over time. So it's just incredible that, as Skip Bayless was so angrily said, it's all in my ass.
All in my ass.
But you know what? If there is one positive to this, Jerry, you bragged about the season ticket holders when everyone was making fun of no one showing up to training camp, and your team shit the bed for all those people who overpaid for those tickets. So in a way, that works for me.
I feel like, and I could have gotten a clip of this, but it's when I guess they do this for every home game. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I really don't know if this is something that's new or they just do it for big games or whatever. But when they have all the fans rush into the stadium, it just feels that every time they show that on TV, it's like an omen, right? Like something bad's about to happen.
No, they show it. They do show it a lot. I don't know if it's they show it every game.
But is that a thing that's recent, or has that always been a thing?
No, that's all. That's the standing room people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when you buy standing room tickets. You have to fight to literally get to the railing, or else you're just standing there watching it on TV.
All right. Well, there we go. Well, that's enough of that. It's time for me to pull off the Band-Aid and talk about.
Let's talk about the best thing that happened this weekend.
Backfield. Hurts. Barkley dropped it. Wow.
Watching that still pisses me off. All right, so for those...
This branding has robbed me of my Kellen Moore picture.
Well, sorry. Can't help you with that one. Listen, for anybody who didn't watch Monday Night Football, the Philadelphia Eagles lost to the Atlanta Falcons 22-21. They were one of the rare wins for Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football. Oh, and that disgusts me in so many ways. Let's just get into it, right? So, in this game, it was not very pretty for the Philadelphia Eagles on defense, especially. But we'll talk about the offense. Early on in the game, the Philadelphia Eagles were having their way in the run game. There was really nothing that the Atlanta Falcons presented defensively that kind of indicated, hey, they can stop the Saquon Barkley handoffs. Early on in the game, I believe he was averaging at one point 8.9 yards carry. At one point, it fell down to about 4. But in comes Jalen Hurts, and Bethke, you said it to me in I think Discord. I was reverse jinxing Jalen Hurts, and then there was one play by the defensive line, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, where I make a comment on Twitter saying, hey, Jalen Hurts looks slow because he's running out of bounds, and I've just never seen him move so slowly before.
In all fairness, you weren't the only. They said it on the broadcast too, I believe.
Yeah, and so it was genuinely concerning because I follow everything that happens in Eagles training camp. I'm hearing it from everybody. Jalen Hurts looks fast again. He looks like his normal self. And then you see week 1, I didn't see it on tape. I don't think anybody did. And then early on in the game, I didn't see it either. And then they just start letting Hurts scramble up the middle. They do power runs with him. He's scrambling up the middle. And at one point, he actually scrambles to his right. Every time he scrambles to his right, by the way, for anybody who's in the know, it's usually a dead play for Jalen Hurts because he's not very good, despite his reputation throwing on the run, especially to his right. But he's making things happen with his legs. As long as he's kind of like running in a straight line, you see that speed. You don't really see the quickness anymore, but you see the speed. And so the Philadelphia Eagles on the ground were having their way with the Falcons, rather. The Falcons defense. And then on the passing side of things, he was very efficient, 23 of 30. I know that the yardage wasn't there, only 180 yards, only 1 touchdown and 1 interception. The interception, of course, at the end of the game. But he was making some pretty good throws. And, despite that drop from Saquon right there, I felt like he was making most of the right reads, most of the right decisions. There was a couple of throws that you want him to have back, but you can say that about almost any quarterback in any game. And so I was like, all right, I don't put this on Jalen Hurts. That last throw, maybe I do have some issues with.
Little advised.
Little ill-advised.
Probably should have been a little more conservative there.
A little bit there.
Probably your kicker probably hits a game winner.
Well,
if he just a little more.
They needed
about. You got a good kicker though.
We have a good kicker. They said on the broadcast they needed about 15 to 17 yards to get within his range. And in that play right there, we'll talk about it right now, and then we'll just kind of backtrack to the other parts of the game. In that play right there, there's two things that went wrong. One, first and foremost, all right, you have Britton Covey on the underneath part of this route. It's a two-man concept. They're going out to the sidelines. So you have Devontae Smith on the deeper end, and then you have Britton Covey underneath him, right? Jesse Bates does not respect the underneath route threat. And so what does he do? He breaks on the ball on DeVonta Smith, leads to the interception. There's no respect. And you don't have to respect Britton Covey because he is your return man, last year's number 5 receiver. And for whatever reason, this motherfucker was the number 2 target getter in the game. Makes no sense, especially when you consider what else they have on offense, but we'll get to that. Jesse Bates doesn't respect the concept of this.
You know the problem, right? Is you can't have an identity. The problem that you're trying to have here is you're trying to say, oh, we have Saquon. Oh, we have A.J. Brown. Oh, okay, A.J.'s hurt, so that's okay. We have DeVonta Smith. Oh, it's okay. Now we have Dotson. Oh, okay. Oh, we got Goddard. Oh, we have all kinds of identity. No, you have no identity.
God damn it.
No identity.
Well, here is the thing. The identity, at least for this game, was should have been very evident. We should have been run the ball. And there's multiple instances, all right? So let's talk about this because my issue is not with Kellen Moore in this case. I have a lot of issues though with the head coach because the head coach should be doing something. He should be setting aside.
So you're saying Kellen Moore head coach win?
No, not at all.
Okay.
But I am saying Nick Sirianni coach fired win. Now, here's what. I'm not going to go out here and be like, fire the head coach right now. But there are two very specific drives that really kind of show glaring weakness in the structure of the Philadelphia Eagles coaching staff. The first one, it's that first time they get into the red zone and they have to settle for a field goal. All right. So they settle for a field goal. Oh, no, sorry. They don't settle for a field goal. They should have settled for a field goal. They go for it. As we all know, I hate cowardly coaches. I hate when coaches are very conservative. When the analytics tell them, hey, go for it, just fucking go for it. Put trust in your guys that they can get the ball either across the first down marker or into the end zone. But in this situation, all right, you have a drive where, hey, the Atlanta Falcons, they're moving the ball. Now they didn't score on their first 2 possessions, but they were able to move the ball. Your defensive line, these coaches have seen this offensive line or this defensive line in practice enough to know they are not to be trusted. So it looks like you're going to have to be the type of team that has to outscore your opponent constantly. You can't win with defense. You can't win with a conservative approach. But you need all the points that you can get, right? Get the field goal there. You get the field goal there, and then what happens? Well, if everything else plays out exactly the same way, guess what? On this play right here,
Hurts. Barkley.
happen. Why? Because you're now playing with a bigger lead, right? Instead of just, at this point.
I think it still happens technically.
Well, here's the thing. It doesn't happen in that it may not necessarily show up. This play call doesn't necessarily show up.
Do you know how many times I knew Ezekiel Elliott could get 4 yards and instead they did that exact shit?
Hey, listen, this is my first year with Kellen Moore, so I'm learning, all right? But listen, on this one, all right, they asked Nick Sirianni about his decision-making, both on this last drive and in the drive where he skips out on the field goal And he doubles down and saying, we look at the analytics, but sometimes I study these plays and I just go based off my gut instinct. Your gut instinct sucks. Your gut instinct is wrong. It has not been right, it feels like, since 2022. So we have this play, right? It's 3rd and 3. The Eagles have the most unstoppable quarterback sneak in the game. All you need in this case is 2 yards to get yourself in position for a 4th and 1, and you can run down the clock. Hell, you don't even necessarily need to score because the Atlanta Falcons don't have a timeout left. So you don't have to risk a passing play. But they do it anyway, and guess what? Saquon is open, the pass is good, and this fucker drops it. And here's the thing. I didn't know this about Saquon until after the game was over. He, since 2021, leads all running backs in drops with 16 drops. I didn't know this motherfucker was.
I thought the funniest thing that happened to you guys is that he had that amazing catch week 1, because I was like, that's not the Saquon I've seen. That's definitely not the Saquon I've seen.
I've seen Saquon against the Eagles, and listen, he gets his yards in. He's usually not a factor in the passing game in those games specifically. So it's like, outside of that, I don't really have a reason to watch New York Giant lowlights because I revel in their failure just on the box score. I don't need to see a full game. But either way, you have this drive where, man, you should have just fucking gone for it. At 4th and 3, that's where you got to go for it. You got to have it moment, because then even if you don't get it, you force Atlanta to at least drive further than what they did. Granted, they drove 70 yards on their possession, but in this case, maybe it's 80-something yards, and that is a factor in how they manage their time and their personnel decisions and their play calling. A lot of things can change in the NFL from play to play, down to down, based just where they are on the field. So, where this came down to, at least where the offense and where the coaching staff lost this game, was on that first drive where they're in the red zone and they have to fucking just go for it for whatever reason. Instead of getting those points, and then on the end they settle for the field goal. It should have been inverse. In my opinion, it should have been inverse situations. And if it wasn't going to be, trust your offensive line to get the fucking 3 yards, right? If you don't want to put it in Saquon's hands, QB power. Just QB power with Jalen Hurts. He had not been stopped in the second half on those plays at all. Trust for him to get it. Whatever. But now here's my real fucking issue with this team. And it's the fucking defensive line. Becky, you and I, birds of a feather when it comes to the critiques that we have with our defensive line. Although yours are more with the defensive tackles and mine are with the edges. The edges for these Philadelphia Eagles were non-existent. At one point, your highly touted free agent pickup, Bryce Huff, is getting stonewalled by Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, who is a glorified big receiver playing tight end, who has never been known for his blocking, still is not known for his blocking, held him up for over 4 seconds. 4 seconds in the NFL when you're passing is an eternity. And for you to not be able to get past him at all, you can't even make it to an offensive lineman. Shameful. And then you look at fucking Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat, who's the only other young defensive end on the team that has some sort of track record of getting to the quarterback, right? Nowhere to be seen in this game. Absolutely nowhere to be seen. And then the only sack that you would have gotten from an edge rusher was from Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham is your 36-year-old bench defensive end who's the only edge rusher who has gotten any sort of pressures or QB hits on the season. Young season, still very damning for such an old man to be outshining his younger counterparts. And then we're going to go to the interior, because the interior of the defensive line isn't that much better for the Philadelphia Eagles. Contrary to what you might believe, the Philadelphia Eagles actually have the worst run defense in the NFC East, allowing 6.2 yards a carry. And a lot of those runs are coming up on the inside. So Jalen Carter, he was supposed to have a breakout season. He still can, right? It's still early in the season, but he was not a factor in Atlanta. He did have some good plays against Green Bay, But hey, man, I need you to step up. I need you to step up when the team needs you most. You are the most heralded starter on the defensive line. And then Jordan Davis, I had such high hopes for this guy. Go back, look at it. His spider chart, his combine, he showed to be the most freak athlete we have ever seen, pound for pound athlete ever in the history of the combine, especially at defensive tackle. And that has not translated. He was a stud at Georgia. The big concern was, can he handle the workload of NFL rotation? Because in Georgia, he was only playing about less than 30% of the snaps, but the snaps that he was playing were high leverage and highly impactful. There's a reason that he won whatever that award is for the best defensive lineman in college football. And he's just been nowhere to be seen. You get more production out of Milton Williams, who had the lone sack on the evening, and then Booker, I think is his name. I don't know this guy's name, but he was the only other defensive tackle or defensive lineman rather to show anything meaningful. So when your defensive line is bad and you can't get to a 35, 36-year-old Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles heel, he has all day to throw. You're asking for disaster. And then that final play to Drake London. Darius Slay, what the fuck are you looking at? Why are your eyes on the quarterback? He's not a threat to run. So why aren't you following Drake London? Your eyes should be on the receiver. I get you want your eyes on the ball, but no, you just do not have the space and the time, the situation to play around like that. So yeah, all things to say, the Philadelphia Eagles snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. They should have won this game. They lost. I was pissed. This was a bad game for the Eagles coaching staff in terms of how they managed the game. And then Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator, you should be on a short leash, buddy, because we've been running your system for 3 years now. This is the first year with you as the head of the system. And I just do not believe in your style of defense, your philosophy in defense. I'd rather have like a Brian Flores type, somebody who's aggressive, somebody who will just throw weird, crazy shit at opposing quarterbacks and be like, figure it out. So, and then with Kellen Moore, I don't know. It was a mixed bag. There were some plays in there that I really liked the way that he did things. He's a mixed bag, man. He has some pretty good highs as a play caller, some really infuriating fucking lows. And yeah, Nick Sirianni, you're on the short leash.
Do you think Caesar looks at the screen? Do you think he sees?
No, I saw it.
Okay. He just plowed right through. I was like, maybe he just doesn't have it like pulled up to where he could see it.
No. You, when I have to get my point across, I really don't care what's in front of me. I'm gonna say what's on my chest. So yeah. Either way, Eagles lost, frustrating, and now they have to tote that they have to wheel out that shitty defensive line against the New Orleans Saints. And I guess that just brings us up. Unless you guys have anything you want to say about the game.
No, it was a great time. 10 out of 10 would watch again.
Did not see a second of it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next slate of our segment. It's the watch it. It's the skip it. It's the train wreck. Do we have anything this week, Patrick?
Watch it or skip it. Watch it or skip it. Watch it or skip it. This one's a train wreck.
There we go.
That was beautiful. That's a 10 out of 10. That's your best work yet. That's your best work yet on that one.
Thanks. I stole a song from an old black man, like all good white musicians do, and changed the words a little.
There we go.
Although, to be fair, I don't know if anyone knows who wrote that song, so.
Somebody might.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into it. Gentlemen, for this week, I actually have two contenders Three contenders for the must-watch game of the week. Now, we're going to start things off. We're not going to preview this game. We're just going to, because we're going to save that for the previewing. But it's the Ravens versus the Dallas Cowboys. Now, there could be some reasons why you wouldn't want to watch this game, but you look from a narrative perspective, there's a lot to be said, right? You have the Ravens 0-2 for the first time since, I believe, 2008, 2009, I believe. And then you have the Dallas Cowboys coming off a bad loss. You have two teams with a lot to play for. Granted, this is out of conference, so this loss is kind of meaningless when it comes to the playoff positioning. But you don't want to be, if you're the Baltimore Ravens, you don't want to be 0-3, all right? At all. Your chances of making the playoffs at 0-3, abysmal, non-existent practically. And then you have the Dallas Cowboys. You just do not want to follow up a bad performance against the Saints with yet another bad performance against the Baltimore Ravens. So there's a lot on there. You have two talented quarterbacks. There's a lot going on narratively that should be your reason for watching this game. Next up, the Detroit Lions versus the Arizona Cardinals. Y'all, this is a game that just screams offense. It just tells me that there's going to be a lot of points on the board. You have just incredible skill position play on either end. Amon-Ra St. Brown on one side, Marvin Harrison Jr. on the other. Jared Goff, when he gets on a heater, he can be entertaining to watch. And then Kyler Murray is a human highlight reel waiting to happen, or a human low light reel waiting to happen. So there's a lot that can occur in this game. That's why I put this on here. And then the next one, it's a battle of undefeated teams. And this might be the first time we've ever had two of our teams on the must-watch game. It's the Minnesota Vikings against the Houston Texans. Yes, your Minnesota Vikings are on this week's must-watch.
Minnesota Vikings.
Listen,
no one should watch any of our games. Just leave us alone.
No, you watch this game because you want to see Brian Flores up against C.J. Stroud. What can one of the better defensive minds in this league throw at C.J. Stroud, and how can C.J. Stroud counteract against that? And then on the other side, you look at it, Sam Darnold, he's trying to have a resurgence in his career, and then the Houston Texans defense, obviously led by DeMeco Ryans as a defensive mind. What can he throw that way to create chaos? This could be a game where, hey, it could be a low-scoring affair. It could be defenses are the story of this game, or somebody breaks the trend here, breaks the mold, and we have fucking fireworks. We have a good old-fashioned Big 12 style game. Who knows? That's why I put this on here. And again, a battle of two undefeated teams. Always an interesting narrative to put on there. So, gentlemen, I know who I'm going to vote for on this one. I don't know if you guys are going to vote for him. We're going to have a dead heat here. But my vote here for must-watch game of the week, Detroit Lions at Arizona Cardinals, baby. I just think that game's going to be a lot more fun. But I don't know. What say you guys?
I don't think there's ever been two not must-watch franchises as much as Detroit and Arizona. I have to watch Vikings-Texans, so then I guess I'm left voting for Ravens-Cowboys. But yeah. There's no way in hell I'm watching Lions-Cardinals, I'll tell you that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, just like Tom Brady, I'm destined to watch the Dallas Cowboys for the rest of my life. So, yeah, that's where I'll be.
So, but is that the game that you feel is the must-watch for our...
Yeah, everybody should tune in, because I think more people enjoy when they're losing. And then if they're winning, then I want more people to watch as I, gloat and act an asshole.
Fair enough. So I've been outvoted 2-1. Your must-watch game, dear audience, is going to be Ravens versus Cowboys. Now let's go to the must-skip-it part of this. There's plenty of games that I was like, yeah, not worth a fucking second of my time or yours. And these are the two most egregious matchups for different reasons. Giants and Browns. It's just two bad teams, right? Just going up against each other. You have bad quarterback play on both ends. I don't care that Deshaun Watson had a mildly okay game. this past week. He still sucks. Daniel Jones, he still sucks. Giants fans, you're out here. I know there's the delusional Giants fans that say, you know what? Daniel Jones is better than Jalen Hurts because of these reasons. I'm like, bro, I can see the tape. You put Daniel Jones in the Eagles, he's not good. All right? It doesn't matter. It was before the contract even.
I'm just wondering who makes more money because he's obviously the better quarterback.
Hurts makes more money, but he didn't for a minute. He didn't last season. So you go into this and you're like, all right, Daniel Jones, he's trash. Deshaun Watson, he's trash. And then what redeemable qualities are there for the viewing experience? Malik Neighbors, if you're into that.
No, Malik Neighbors was awful this week. He dropped a couple plays. They actually probably could have won that game. But he dropped a couple.
I think it was a mixed bag, right? Didn't he get a touchdown earlier in the game?
Yeah,
but no.
He was the only bright spot on that offense.
If you're a receiver and I see you drop 2 critical plays down the stretch, I'm automatically worried about you forever now. No matter how good the rest was.
It's tough, but when the rest of your team is garbage around you, I mean, how long does that carry the load?
T.O. would have had every record in the book had he not got the yips for like 4 years.
Dog, I can't agree with you on the Malik Neighbors because he had 10 fucking catches for 127 yards. Like, what more do you want?
But 2 critical drops. If Daniel Jones manages to get you the ball, you have to catch it.
Yeah, I'm just not seeing eye to eye with you on that one. He should drop more passes, honestly, for my sake. But either way, this is a game that just shouldn't be on anybody's television or radio, for that matter. You know what? We should get the results of this game the old-fashioned way, just the newspaper. Just what did the reporters say? Oh, and then this next game, stylistically, like this, just no. Why? Why would you want to watch 2 boring offenses? We have the New York Jets going up against the New England Patriots. You have an old Aaron Rodgers who I just don't think he can light it up anymore, and I don't think he's going to light it up against a sound Patriots defense. So the entertainment value there is kind of gone. And then you look at the New England Patriots offense; they're just a big bag of nothing. They don't really have anything that just says, "Hey, you should watch this product. This is a fun product to watch." So for that reason, gentlemen, my must-skip candidates are the Giants and Browns, and then Jets against the Patriots. I'm voting Jets. Not Jets. Sorry, I'm voting the Giants and Browns as my must-skip game of the week. But guys, I'm going to leave it up to you guys to determine what our audience must avoid at all costs.
I would definitely love to see the Pats. I would love to see the Pats keep the Jets a little closer and keep that New York crowd a little feisty, because they already are giving up on the Giants. So now there's still the glimmer of hope with Aaron Rodgers, and they've got decent running backs, so they can theoretically extend this window of interestingness for the New York football media for at least a few more weeks. But the Patriots are low-key kind of like not fucking around. I mean, they're not that talented all in all, but like they're not really fucking around.
Heavy, but it seems like they might have a higher floor than some teams.
Yeah, they're definitely out there putting together some good football. So even if they're a little mortal.
And I'm gonna break off here, and I'm gonna pick Panthers Raiders, because no one should subject themselves to whatever that's gonna look like.
No, we already discussed this last week.
Yeah,
the Panthers are
they're permanent. Yeah, you're right. Okay, I was wondering. I was looking down the list. I was like, how did he not have them on there? Seattle, Miami might also kind of suck.
No, that one's interesting just because you want to see how desperate they get at quarterback.
Well, yeah, it's like it might just not be worth to watch it. It might be a train wreck. We'll see. But out of those two, I think Giants Browns is interesting, but because it's interesting in a bad way.
All right.
So skip that one. So I mean, skip the Jets Pats and watch the Giants Browns if you got to pick between those two.
So the winner.
That was a very long way to go around and say that.
Yeah. So the winner, or I guess loser in this case, is the Giants Browns, as Bethke is interested for Jets Pats. So we will now go to the train wreck version of this. Now, Pat, you brought up a good point with Seattle, Miami. I didn't even consider that when I made this because I just don't think of Seattle of being.
I think
kind of a
I think
team.
you might have been aiming the barrel at your own face a little bit with your pick.
Yeah. Well.
Well, and also I think Seattle, Miami is more boring than train wreck.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, if there's an emergency quarterback situation, that could get interesting. But otherwise,
or they just hand the ball off 500 times. It's not.
Yeah, Scott Thompson is bad, and Seattle.
Mostert's looking forward to what he's got to do. Him and A-Chain this week.
Yeah.
Well, if you go by what the Miami fan base is calling Mostert, they're calling him Slowster.
Yeah, I mean he's not the lead back anymore, right?
No, not just that. He just looks genuinely slower
he's
than
actually
he's ever
slower
looked
than he. Okay, sorry.
Than he's ever been. But that happens to running backs, But either way, we'll see what happens in that game. I expect it to just be like an average NFL game, so that's why I didn't put it anywhere in between skip it or train wreck. Now this one, putting the barrel in one's face, I'm putting my team on this one, train wreck. Here's the reason why. This is a train wreck in that I think this is going to be like a fucking blowout, or the potential for a blowout is really high. Yeah, it's against New Orleans.
In New Orleans.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, it is against it is in New Orleans. And yeah, listen, that defensive line can't get to the quarterback. So if Derek Carr has a clean pocket to throw from, he can dice up. He can dice you up.
Dude, and that offensive line was like, I mean, I'm not saying the Cowboys did a good job by any means, and I want to reiterate that, but that offensive line did some impressive shit too. They had dudes running down the field at full speed with Kamara.
Did Kamara? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Kamara went off. Kamara fucking destroyed. Yeah, it was.
I think he wasn't there week 1. Is that what I was thinking?
Yeah, he was. I think maybe they limited it. I don't know, but he was. Okay. He was there in week 2, and boy, he was useful. And
I remember looking down at not starting Shaheed, leaving him on my bench, and he had 20 fantasy points in the first quarter, and I was like, "What is going on in Dallas?"
Yeah, Shaheed was
going
crazy. This game just. Everything here tells me that everything that I've seen so far just kind of tells me that the Eagles are in for another bad performance. That
Saints defense not perfect, but they're pretty tough. Like they hit like a motherfucker. They don't seem to be a very enjoyable team to play against, even if they're not.
I think the Saints specialty, right?
Yeah, I think the Saints defense is going to be the beneficiary of having a high scoring offense where they can just pin their ears back and not really care too much. And if there's one thing that the Eagles seem to struggle against, at least historically in the Jalen Hurts era, is that style of defense. He has been better, at least statistically speaking, this season against blitzing. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I just feel like this is going to be one of those games where the Eagles unravel, and that's going to make for, if you're a Cowboys, Giants, or Washington fan, it's going to make for great television. But otherwise, it's going to be a train wreck, especially if they put this in a prime position. I don't think they put this as America's Game of the Week. No, they didn't. Good.
No,
good.
Cowboys,
Ravens?
Yeah,
probably.
Cowboys, Ravens.
It's kind of surprising. We had Chiefs, Falcons right there.
For a train wreck?
If there's any excuse to do it.
For America's Game of the Week.
Yeah,
America's Game of the Week is almost always a Cowboys game, even if there's no reason why it should be America's Game of the Week.
I feel like Mahomes is slowly forcing some.
But they're CBS mostly.
It doesn't, not anymore. I watched 49ers Vikings on CBS, and that was weird.
No, yes, they switch more, but it's still, the Chiefs are still, like, CBS basically makes sure they get a bunch of the Chief games, and Fox basically makes sure they get a bunch of the Cowboy games.
Yeah,
that's
basically the way they
broke
split.
some of that though. This year with the new TV deals, like
but I don't think it's going to be that big
slowly
of a
watering. Yeah, it's only going to slowly water down more.
I'm still expecting a lot of Chief games on CBS and a lot of Cowboy games on Fox.
That's fair. Now, for this one, would you look at that? The Chiefs are going to be the 7:20 game.
So Peacock.
Wait,
NBC/Peacock.
Oh, I forgot there was 2 Mondays this week.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. And then the other train wreck game. This is going to be a train wreck for the quarterback play. Because on one hand, you have the Chicago Bears going up against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, for all the praise that I gave Anthony Richardson in week 1, he came out with a dud in week 2. And you know what? It's bound to happen with a young quarterback who has not gotten a lot of snaps to play. He's a high variance player right now at this stage of his career. So, what does that mean? That means that he is capable of producing a train wreck of an offense. And then the Chicago Bears, somehow, some way, that offensive line, who got Justin Fields killed a lot, it's worse than they were last year. Their pass block win rate is significantly lower than last year. And Caleb Williams is putting up some pretty rough performances. And it's hard to be good when your offensive line is giving you actually 0 time. I believe on 36 of 37 dropbacks, they said this stat on a couple of places. He was pressured. To be pressured on 36 of 37 dropbacks is fucking insane. So that's why this game for me could be a train wreck because how is the ball going to fucking move in this game? Yeah, gentlemen, my vote for this one, I don't know. I feel like my bias, I'll be called biased either way I go. So I'm just going to go ahead and say Saints-Eagles because I just think that's going to be a blowout. But what say you, gentlemen? What's the bigger train wreck game?
I think Bears-Colts has more potential for wildness just because you got 2 young quarterbacks who, while talented, are still young enough to make some just crazy decisions. So I think we might see some train wreck in that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's like my 2 favorite quarterback prospects of the last however long in a game together. But the only trick is both offenses suck asshole. Let's go.
Yes, sir. All right. And now to the final part of our segment. We're previewing our team's games this week. Let's just go ahead and start with the winners, shall we? Minnesota Vikings, Houston Texans. We're going to go there. Listen, in this game, this is where my expectations are for the Minnesota Vikings. All right. On defense, I think they're going to give C.J. Stroud hell. But I think C.J. Stroud is talented enough to overcome what is going to be thrown his way. And at the end of the day, you're going to have a situation where the team with the more steady quarterback play is going to win the game. But I think this is going to be a really close game. Minnesota finds themselves in close games regularly. Patrick, you've noted that for a long time. This is the type of game, for me, I think ends with Houston Texans going 23, Minnesota Vikings 22. I think it's a 1-point game, and it really just comes down to who gets the ball last. And we might see some magic from C.J. Stroud, which he's shown plenty of in his young career. But Patrick, this is your team we're talking about. So what do you think is going to happen in this one?
Yeah, I think this is going to be our first loss, but I think in classic Vikings fashion, it's going to be a 3 or 4 point game. Darnold's probably going to throw an interception, or at least a touchdown. And I think that's kind of what most of the season's going to look like, is just a bounce or 2 here determines each game. Because we're not especially good and we're not especially bad. We are exactly what the NFL is looking for.
9-8, baby. We're 8-9.
But yeah, I know I picked the Vikings to win, and I'm torn. It could go either way.
Well, we're gonna hold you by your pick, sir. So, what do you have? What do you got here?
Vikings.
I have the Vikings on the actual chart over here, so I'll just stick with that.
All right, there you go. And then I have Houston on this one actually. So there we go. And then Bethke, do you have a prediction? Do you want to pick it? Well, you already put your winner down.
And that was obviously a well thought out thing, and as you know, because you can see,
Bethke knows the ball.
I chose
Minnesota
a team to
Vikings.
win. Yeah, the Minnesota Vikings, because Sam Darnold is coming to reclaim the throne, comeback player of the year. JJ McCarthy's going to get traded to the Panthers. Get ready.
Minnesota!
Whoops. All right. Well, there you got it on that one. Now let's move on to the next game on the
Can't
1
believe
o'clock
I didn't
slate.
consider Sam Darnold for comeback player of the year.
He's just coming back from being really bad. But yeah,
Coming back from playing for the Panthers and whoever.
that was like 2 seasons ago at this point.
Jets,
But
Panthers, where else is it? 49ers.
49ers. That was not too bad of a gig to have the backup 49ers gig. But anyway, back into the 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock slate. Depends where they're at. Eagles and Saints. Yeah, you've already heard my pessimism about this game. Listen, if there's one style of offense that's given the Eagles hell, but they've kind of been able to manage to keep their head afloat, it is the Shanahan tree. It is that Shanahan style, multiple formations, a lot of undercenter runs, a lot of play action passing, not a lot of true drop back passing involved. Here's the thing. How do you take advantage of that style of offense? With a dominant pass rush, right? When your edges are able to, one, set the edge, and two, get after the quarterbacks without having to send in extra bodies in the blitz, so you can have more people in coverage, forcing that quarterback in the Shanahan tree to hold on to the ball for longer than anticipated. And then, yeah, here's the thing. The Eagles don't have that. They do not have that. Vic Fangio is not known for his blitzes. So you look at the defensive matchup against the Saints, you're at a mismatch. You're just absolutely you're just going to be fucking cooked. All right. Unless Derek Carr has like one of those classic Derek Carr bad games, or just like those games where he's just like, why would you make that throw? Or why are you so scared of hanging out in the pocket? I just don't see how the defense of the Eagles stops.
He is due a bonehead pick. He threw one, but it was more of a stone skipper pick. It wasn't one of the traditional stupid interceptions he's known for. So I will say Philadelphia should be excited for that. Is he's gone 2 games without one of those holy shit, is this guy got rocks in his brains interceptions? So you got to feel good about your chances of getting one of those at least.
Yeah. Now, on the opposite end, you have the Philadelphia Eagles offense against the New Orleans Saints defense. Jalen Hurts, I believe, against the New Orleans Saints, he's actually had a pretty good showing against them. He had his first career win as a starter against them. And then the very next year, his first year as a full-time starter, had a great performance against them there. So he's personally, I believe he's 2-0 against the Saints and against Dennis Allen defenses in particular. So that gives me some hope that the Philadelphia Eagles can put up points, especially if they lean on the run game. If they're able to dominate in the trenches on the run game and keep the ball out of the hands of Derek Carr and the offense on the other side, I can see a world where they win a low-scoring affair. But will the defense be able to hold up is the problem. Will the Saints force the Eagles to play a shootout type of game? If they are forced into that, I just don't see how they win it. Especially when, at least to start the year, they're not funneling the ball to Dallas Goedert at all. For whatever reason, Britton Covey is getting 6 targets in a game where AJ Brown is missing time. Devontae Smith looks great. He won his fair share of matchups against AJ Terrell, the elite corner for the Falcons. What you expect for him to do, but he is a one-man show on the outside. Will Jalen Hurts develop any sort of trust to throw the ball to Jahan Dotson? Doesn't look like it right now. Traded a 3rd-round pick for the guy. Please incorporate him into the passing game until he gives you a reason not to. So there's a lot of questions that I have about the offense. And so I'm predicting the Eagles get an ass kicking here because I just don't think Nick Sirianni is going to really shape up that coaching staff to come up with a plan that works, because he doesn't call plays. He doesn't do anything with personnel. He's just kind of supposed to be the culture setter and just make big time decisions on critical downs, and he's not doing that well right now. So all that said, I think the Eagles lose to the New Orleans Saints. If I'm going to put a score, fuck it, let's call it 42-14. They get their ass kicked pretty bad. Bethke,
Nice.
Patrick, where do you guys see this game going? And should I continue to be pessimistic? The answer is
You
probably
always should.
yes.
You always should. It's great for the business.
Great for content. What are we thinking?
I'm not saying y'all are gonna win, but I don't think the Saints have 2 blowouts like that in a row in them. And
3? You mean 3?
you guys?
Yeah, I would say yes. There'll be 3 in a row. They beat the Panthers first week.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I thought we were just not counting the Panthers in anything this year.
Just not watching them.
I also don't think the Eagles have that classic Cowboys in them that created that game last week. So I think it'll be closer.
I think they can run the football.
And I think they'll
and
probably
keep the
win.
Possessions down. Yeah.
And I don't think that you can just run directly at the Eagles and it just works. So not in the way that running at a guy who's supposed to be the greatest defensive player in the league just makes him null and void. I don't think that's going to happen to the Eagles. So
yeah, they do have quite a bit of problems on that. They was watching a lot of stuff in this last game where they were getting punked out pretty bad, and they average more than we do. But I hear you.
Well, there you go. With all that said, gentlemen, good luck to your teams or not in week 3, because that concludes the.
Did I just somehow completely miss Jacob previewing Cowboys Ravens?
Oh, you're right. But
Stop the run the football. Good luck.
I know I was looking at some other stuff here and there, but I feel like I would have.
You're right. That's on me.
Oh, you're good. I was just making sure I didn't miss it. I was like, wait.
Let's look at this game.
How did I just space out?
I spaced out myself. Yeah, let's look at this game real quick. Baltimore Ravens at Dallas Cowboys. Now, this one, I really think it's going to be. This is going to be a game where, I know I have them on my picks. I think I have Baltimore winning this game, but that's more of a hater pick than I believe it in the bottom of my soul pick. And here's the reason why. And Bethke, this may be something you'll like to hear. So the biggest issue with the Baltimore Ravens this year, bad offensive line play. Genuinely very bad offensive line play, especially in the interior. How does that help the Cowboys? Well, they've been weak in the interior of their defensive line. So it's 2 negatives cancel out. Somebody has to be on the positive end. It could be the Dallas Cowboys. And you could see a world where you're going to see Lamar Jackson run for his life on almost every other play. Now, he is the talented scrambler, playmaker that we all know him to be. He's still that guy. So there'll be times where it looks like D-Law or, Micah Parsons has him dead to rights, and they miss because the guy is just that good. But they'll have more than enough opportunities to get him down, which they probably will. And then you look at the other side of the coin. The Ravens defense, Cowboys offense. Ravens have a lot of players that they are missing from last year's team. A lot of them happen to be on defense as well. So you don't have a lot of carryover. You don't have a lot of consistency. The Cowboys can use that to their advantage. And, we can see a great bounce back game from Dak in the offense. We may not see it on the ground game, but we could definitely see it in the passing game. I have the Ravens winning as a hater bet, but objectively, I think this is a bounce back game for the Cowboys, and we might see the Baltimore Ravens in trouble. That's how I see this game going. So, hater pick, yes, for Ravens, but really, objectively, maybe the Cowboys do win this game. So, Becky, let's see.
It's fun to be the underdog at home.
I'll do my quick one before you explain more of yours because I don't have a lot on it. I think the Cowboys are going to win.
Fair. I mean, I'm not going to go too much further either because it's pretty much play like you have respect for yourselves. Again, we have to repeat these things.
Like you appreciate being a football player and getting paid to play the game.
Respect the fact that even if they kind of suck, those people did pay a lot of money to be there. The other part of this, run the football better. I think that's possible with better offensive line play and a better maybe mix of the current guys on the roster, maybe adding a former Viking. Maybe he's not completely washed. We'll see.
Which one?
Dalvin Cook. When it comes to the defensive side of the ball, Kendricks is fine. Kendricks will be okay because I expect Kendricks to do what he's already been doing, good and bad. I don't know what to expect when it comes to the defensive tackle position. Osa Digizua, he's never going to be a run guy. We know that. Maybe this week he gets to have one of his big games as a pass rusher because of their offensive line. Mozzie Smith, I don't even know. Shit. Jordan Phillips is gone. That's going to be a funny one to figure out. When did they officially get to cut him? Because that was one of the funniest things I've seen in a while.
Yeah, Vernon, we didn't talk about that earlier.
We didn't talk about it. No.
Jordan Phillips was put on the IR for a wrist injury, and he was just like, "There's nothing wrong with my wrist. I don't know. Someone asked him about his wrist, and he said that's above my pay grade.
Yeah, it is because, hey man, I think they actually have to pick swap. I think they have to send a pick swap over to New York because he played 2 games for us too. So. I think they're extra bitter about how bad he played, and Zimmer, being an old fuss. I mean, that's why Zimmer said what he said. Zimmer's sure systematically there was some problems, but Zimmer's point is that those guys didn't play football and communicate. And coaches, they're not about to let their system go under the bus when effort is so obvious. So that just ended up being the funny part there. Mozzie Smith also got walked off the practice field today too. But either way. Tackle the guy. Play DeMarvion over Sean a lot. He's good. No further questions. Mike McCarthy, despite all of the bullshit, has been pretty good at comebacks after the win or after the loss. So will that change? I mean, it could all implode this year and none of that matter. But should it stay on course, it bodes well for the Cowboys. 77-0 Cowboys.
There it is.
There it is. And we'll let our good friend Shannon Sharp react to that prediction.
You lose it, you never win.
Oh, boy!
That stuff is...
Yeah!
Hey, he won a Super Bowl for the Ravens, didn't he?
No, but he did. Well, actually, yeah, I think he
should
did.
be on that first team, right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, there you go. Gentlemen, that concludes our NFL segment. I want to shout out all of our watchers and listeners. And,
3-time Super Triple champion. Oh, wait. Sorry. I forgot he played for other teams. I'm an idiot.
He played for the Broncos, too.
Yeah, he won 2 for the Broncos, 1 with the Ravens.
He's on the Ravens, for 2 years. Got a ring in there.
Boom.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. I'll let Patrick sail the ship to the end.
All right, everybody. Get ready. Get your locked picks in. You can look at our picks somewhere. Actually,
bet your mortgage on my slate.
You actually cannot look at our picks until I put them somewhere. But I'll do
put them
that.
on our Twitter account.
Yeah, I'll put them on our website.
We promise you, we'll get you more money than Bill Simmons has for his listeners.
If it lands, then yes. I was, you bring that up, and I'll just do this here while we're all here. I was thinking about finding a way to put his picks next to ours, but I don't think they pick every game. They do they have their own type of picks they do. They don't every single game. Okay. I couldn't find anywhere. They probably do it.
People have just been roasting the shit out of his $1 million picks this year.
Yeah, that's what they call it. $1 million picks, whatever. Anyways, that's fun. Yeah, I don't know. I'm running out of ideas of words, so let you guys
Cowboys
go.
Don't embarrass us. Sam Darnold don't embarrass us. Eagles feel free to embarrass us.
And
please stop embarrassing me.
Have fun, Arch. All right, you guys. Talk to y'all next week.
Later. All right.
Go hit the
and
button.
then ending the recording. Did you end the recording?